Hello friends and welcome to the Conclave podcast. I'm the Sandman and joining me today we have the Quipster and BDR. Guys, how are you today?
I am excellent.
Also joining me today is a man who, if you live in London, you probably well know. We have Karim. How are you, Karim?
I'm all the better for being with you lovely folks. Thanks for having me on.
You flatter us.
That is very kind to say. Last week we had BDR's origin story, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, and today we're going to delve into the rest of us because we didn't think that was that good. So, before we get started though, let's talk about some hobby progress. Quipster, let's start with you.
So, since the last time we did this, I've done kind of a lot and a little. I've been on, you know how like you go through phases. Sometimes you just say, "Oh, I just want to paint everything."
Yeah. Sometimes it's an hilarious custodian, and then sometimes it's another hilarious custodian. You know what it's like.
That one he made a mistake on. That took him a really long time. Yeah.
Don't even fucking get me started about making mistakes on those stupid custodians Terminators. My God, there's a reason those took me like 2 months to paint.
What mistakes did you make?
There's this one model in particular. There's this one model, and it's got you can see it's off. But he hasn't quite noticed it yet. But
if you go to Quipster's Instagram, guys, you will see we just call it the bad custodian, and he just fucks it up somehow. You'll notice it.
See, what you'll see is these dickheads in the comments being like, "Oh, this is a tiny mistake which Quipster can't see," and I'm just like,
I like to point out Karim is actually checking your Instagram.
Yeah, I am.
Can you see it there?
They've all got. Oh, actually, that's really bad. Yeah.
I hate you. I hate you all.
Okay, I'm retracting. I've just retracted my like from it.
But anyway, I've been on a bit of a building spree because I'm trying to get my Imperial Fists sort of up to scratch. And Karim, this was something we talked about near the beginning of the year. I'm trying to get to zero grey plastic.
Yeah, I'll speak about that in a bit.
Oh my God. And I thought, easy. I don't actually have that much stuff. Like, this will be totally fine. Yeah, no. It was doable. And then Liam from DCTV gave me a whole bunch of stuff to help me build up the Imperial Fists. And I think I ended up with like 40, 50 more models.
Okay.
And it's been a bit of a slog.
That's a nice
I think
gift.
it's something you should still be like. It's a aspiration, not a true goal. So you should still be trying to get there and pacing yourself in such a way that it's maybe feasible.
I mean, I also bought the, what's that? The AOS box for the new High Elves. What's that called?
Lumineth.
The Lumineth. I bought the Lumineth box as well. And obviously Indomitus. So, yeah, I'm not doing myself any favors here.
Yeah, fair.
But I've been on this building spree and I've built like 2 squads of infiltrators, all sub-assembled, all ready to like get painted. And then on top of that, a squad of incursors. So that's 30 models by itself. And then I've got 11 other characters and the Blade Guard and the bikes. So... yeah, there's a lot there, but it's all finally assembled. The only annoying thing I've had is, like, you know how the infiltrators and the incursors have all these like belts and pouches and shit?
A lot of accessories.
Oh, there's just so much stuff. Basically, it's just been me kind of deciding, do I put that on? Like, do I leave it off? Because it's just more stuff to paint. Do you know what I mean?
Make sure you play WYSIWYG when you play Alex, guys.
They do have a lot of antennas though.
Which is your favorite? What are you most excited to paint from like the Indomitus and Shadowspear? Which unit do you think excites you the most?
That's a good question because I kind of hate all of it.
GW, back to the drawing board, please.
Well, no,
how do you not have one in mind? I know mine straight away.
Well, yeah, that was the.
How do those Blade Guard not do something for you just deep down? Like, they're so good.
It's because like I'm looking at them and I'm like, these are the exact opposite reason that I bought Marines for. Like, I have complicated models. They're called custodies.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Whereas
the first, you know,
you wanted
the first base coast of Retributor Gold is tough, and then the second base
buying them off CG.
And the Wash of Reich and Flesh
hard.
Shade.
Oh, I actually never do that.
Besides, Siege Studios did yours, so that was.
Don't you even start. People listening to this will believe that.
Wait, you don't shade them?
No, I do shade them, but I always shade my gold with Agrax. And then I highlight, instead of with silver, I highlight with the brighter gold, auric armor.
Okay.
So and on top of that, I'll do like a matte varnish, and so it will like really dull it down. So it gives it this sort of weird, like dulled metal quality that basically like not many people have. I think that's one of the reasons like people seem to really like my color schemes, especially my Imperial Fist, actually, because like people come up to me and they're like, "Oh my god, the yellow for your Imperial Fist is like really cool." I'm like, it's just contrast with some layers on top, and I think it's the matte varnish that really gives it like an edge. I can feel like you guys must say something.
So modest, man. Like, it's crazy. People come up to me and they're always like, "Ed, you're just so good looking." Like, it really hurts my
I
eyes
actually said
to
that to Ed as we were walking in, and the way he took it in his stride, I know he's heard it a lot before.
But when you're a guy,
no, it's just like
you just get used to it, mate.
it's just like, for example, Will in our group said this to me the other day, like, "Oh, I really like this yellow," and I was just like, "Oh, okay, cool," because generally speaking, yellow is quite a difficult paint to use just because it's so thin and you have to use so many layers. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way these Imperial Fists are coming out. Sort of like we were talking, like you were saying, like, oh, which model are you like super excited to paint? And I've had this weird thing, like I've been in this building spree, I've built all these like infiltrators and stuff, but I'm getting to the Indomitus things, the Indomitus box, and I've been painting the chaplain. So I painted his head, I painted his backpack, and I'm really happy with those. And I actually started doing the, on the parchment on purity seals, they have the writing, and some will just get like a black pen or like a really fine brush and do the black like lines for the script. And at certain points, in really old style books, they'll have like the red square with the thing with the letter. Yeah. So I've been doing that on that chaplain's backpack and all the purity seals coming off of it. And I thought, yeah, this was really fun. Then when I went to actually paint the main body of the chaplain, I got about halfway and I was just like, I hate this. I just can't explain why.
I love that chaplain because I've noticed this with a few of the Primaris stuff, which I love. It's a lot like one of the very old sculpts for the chaplain, but obviously Primaris sized, and that one is most like the firstborn chaplain that I have. So I was actually really, really happy that they put that.
With the raised croziers.
With the raised croziers.
I just finished mine earlier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I need to do I do a little pen. So I need to do that on the parchments, but that's about it.
What pen are you using for that?
Something off Amazon. It's like 0.1, and I just
Sharpie.
Yeah.
Sharpie for the gold, ladies and gents.
Just little scribbles, and that's it. No.
Does that actually work? Sharpie for gold?
I've heard it does.
Because I know for the black and stuff it would work, but I'm not saying it wouldn't. I'm just curious, would it work for gold?
What's his face on the independent characters?
Carl Tuttle on the ICs, which is a small little podcast that you might have heard of. Yeah, I know that him and a few other people actually do really rate it. I think Adan as well, maybe.
Does he?
Well, the thing is, they're all semi-jokingly talking about it.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to know whether or not they
I don't know this is a thing.
That's really kind of you guys to shout out a podcast like them. Now that we're like established, helping out the young guys, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, totally. So that's most of my hobby progress. But I'm going to include things I've been reading.
Cool.
So what have I read at the moment? So I realized the other day the first ever Warhammer novel that I read was the second Gaunt's Ghost book, and it's called Ghostmaker, and it always like kind of weirded me out that I could read that book and I always knew it was the second one, but it always seemed like the first.
The first one is first and only, isn't it?
Exactly, and I never understood like what could be in the first book, because it like the second book has the beginning of. I don't know if you guys know the story of like Gaunt's Ghosts.
I presume it's got a ghost in it.
Ironically, no.
The ghosts. Well, there's multiple ghosts.
No, I haven't read Gaunt's Ghosts.
Okay, so basically, it's one of Dan Abnett's first forays into like Warhammer literature, and the premise of the story is there's a commissar who's a colonel commissar in the Astra Militarum, and he gets sent in to help the first founding regiment from a world called Tanith. So he raises like 3 regiments, and he's their commanding officer, and he just gets there and he's like, right, okay, we're going to start by raising these 3 regiments, then later on we're going to raise more regiments. And this is the first time, because every imperial world gets tithed.
Yeah.
So this is the first time. Yep, smile and nod. So this is the first time there's been a military tithe from Tanith, because it's an agricultural world. Now, as soon as the first regiment from Tanith gets raised and they start getting put onto the ships to go to a war front, Tanith gets destroyed. And this isn't really a spoiler because this happens in the first 3 seconds. And so this commissar, Gaunt is his name, gets left with this regiment of light infantry, and he's like, well, shit, my career's over. Like, I've left with this single command.
Wait, so his planet's blown up, and he's like, fuck.
No, it's not his planet. Yeah, he's an officer sent in to help raise the regiment. And so, yeah, he's just like, oh, this is kind of a bit of a career ender for me because I'm stuck with these guys.
A career,
like they can't. And the thing is, yeah, exactly. And so, like, but they can't be reinforced because their home world doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, how would people deal with that? And like, then he goes through like taking through all the different war fronts and stuff. And it's just like a super interesting story.
So which one did you read?
So far, I'm going through the Founding Omnibus, which is the first three books.
Yeah.
So I'm about halfway through Ghostmaker now. Cool. And it's just so good. Like, Dan Abnett is just a master at this.
And it's interesting because they originally, someone will correct me if I'm wrong, appeared in the Inferno series by Games Workshop, which was in the late 90s, early noughties series of comics, which Games Workshop released. Well, comics and short stories. It was a serialized magazine.
Oh, damn.
And that's where Gaunt Ghost first appeared with Abnett. And it's from that work that things like Vox comes from.
Yeah, because Abnett back in...
sorry, I need to face into the mic more.
But yeah, like Dan Abnett, when he was first writing the original Gaunt's Ghost book, it was like back in 97, 98?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, and so like things that we take for granted now, like Voxcaster, like Prometheum, he invented all of these words.
He invented the word Prometheum?
For like
in the
specifically,
wow!
He also works for the Oxford Dictionary.
yeah, literally.
Cool. Wow, that's some decent hobby progress. BDR, what about you, mate?
I don't know if I'm going to talk for as long as a Quipster. So
I made a Hormigaunt.
yes, I glued one. No, it's actually I have glued together an ATV.
Ooh.
And I magnetized it. I'm really proud of myself.
I was going to say, what was it like putting that together?
It's actually really easy. It's this multi-part kit, and the magnetize it is literally just a gun. So you don't have to change anything else. You can just change, because it comes with the shields on both the guns are different.
Did you give it the melter gun or the blue shell?
I'm more of a red shell guy. I had to really think about that. What are you talking about?
Do you want to talk about that on?
I think the internet is aware.
Yeah.
But there is that model that's going around that's painted amazingly as Mario and Luigi. That's the best thing I've seen.
It's just the fact that someone's taking the piss with it, but it's so well painted.
Imagine that like designer who was like, the first pictures of the model. I really hope it's like their first.
But you could
thing.
like expand on it. You could get Waluigi with is it Wario, and then who else could you do for a third one? Because there's squads of 3, right? I'm really taking this really far, but
Princess Peach,
someone's
and
going to
Daisy.
do that.
Yeah, Princess Peach, Daisy, maybe Toad as well.
Toad, Bowser,
Yoshi.
Hugh, Bowser, maybe a little Goomba next to him. It'd be cute.
What would you have Bowser as, like an orc?
Yeah, or a Plague Marine maybe, because you want some size. Or an Orc Knob.
Or like it's a big Swarm Lord.
Bloodletter maybe.
Or alternatively, if you could try and convert like the current Gazgol model to be like trying to like fit inside the ATV.
Massive buggy.
That will be a struggle. But yeah, that model was really good to put together. I put together the Chaplin bike.
I love that.
That model is the
really
head on it
sick
is
the metal mohawk.
Yeah,
so
cool.
fucking good.
That's what I've painted a squad of assault terminators. Well, almost finished it. Painted the Dominus Chaplin, and also painted a little Middle Earth Frodo as a gift for someone.
I saw that.
That's cool.
That's cool. Yeah,
they're so small. painting Primaris Marines and going to paint that is ridiculous.
Well, it's the same thing going from Primaris Marines to Firstborn. Like, you don't think the size difference is so massive until you hold one against the other, and you're just like, oh, go Lord.
I think we're quite lucky though, because the Firstborns I painted have been Sanguinary Guard, which are pretty much the same size.
Yeah, they're like 2013, aren't they? So that's those sculpts. They're not too old.
Oh, okay. And then Death Company as well. But then I feel like they might be a new kit as well.
I assume they'll have redone them around the same time.
But then the Death Company is just like black, and then dry brush, mechanical standard grey on it, and you're done. Paint a little bit of red bits.
Just paint angry.
Yeah. Just throw it at the wall.
Well, wasn't there something you said about Sandman about painting black the other day? How like something about like for for painters who are at the top tier, like competition level, they always say like,
yes. Well, yes. This is the thing. I always says because lots of people, if you are like me and are shite at painting, then the problem that you get is that when you ask for painting advice, people give painting advice based on their level. So top tier painters will often say, don't choose black as a color, right? And that the reason because black's quite hard to paint to an incredibly high standard. But if you're shit, black is very easy to make it look. That's all right. So like,
surprised by that.
That's something that I would always recommend.
I found painting white really hard.
oh, white is always hard to paint.
Yeah,
white
is
and
always
yellow.
But I think to go on the thing about black and the reason why some of the top level players don't like painting it is because it's hard to add interest to it. You get interest by introducing contrast to a model, and how do you introduce contrast to black?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, as someone who's painted quite a lot of black with my shadow keepers, like, you just have to edge highlight the shit out of them.
Yeah.
And it's such a time consuming process. Like, it's just a pain in the ass.
Well, I learned a lot of War Hipsters, just tutorials to shout him out with on the contrast paints with the way he does. I think it's the Vide blue and then the black on top of it. That's really good, and I've tried doing that with the Chaplin model, but I think next time I do it, I've definitely learned a lot from just painting it that way.
Yes, I love his Abaddon actually. The way he does Black Legion is particularly.
He
awesome.
He does turquoise first as an underpaint, and then he'll do the Black Templar contrast on top of that.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal.
All right, we've licked John. We've licked Josh's ass too much on this show. Like, let's back off. He's also like he kicks puppies, guys. Like he's horrible.
I've seen him eat a kitten alive. It was pretty rough, man.
It was my kitten.
Euphemism.
Yeah. Wow. That's some decent progress too. Then. All right. You can't really let the squad down now, mate.
Don't worry. No. So I've got a little. Obviously, since I've last been on the show. Well, I've never been on the show, so I guess I'll talk about all hobby I've ever done. So in the past week or so, I'm 95% done on a squad of 30 bloodletters, a bloodletter bomb.
Are you like an edition late for that?
Well, something like. Well, I think they're actually making a bit of a resurgence, and we can talk about this in games played. But you need to get OBSEC troops onto the middle objectives in turns 2 and 3, having a 3d6 plus 1 inch charge coming on to deep strike, and then re-rolling.
3d6 plus 1?
Yeah.
That is cool.
With an instrument and banner of blood.
So what do you prefer, just playing wise yourself? Do you prefer playing Zangors or do you prefer playing Bloodletters?
It depends. It depends on, for example, I'm moving a little bit away from Thousand Suns just because I think the only viable method for them currently is to play Cult of Duplicity, which is the redeploy one. So the Warlord trait is a redeploy D3 units, and Sorcerer's Facade is their psychic power, which is the jump essentially.
That's really good.
It is really solid, and you can throw a sort of 20 Rubric Eye up. You can throw a sort of 30 Zangors up. But Bloodletters, Zangors are tougher. Bloodletters are a massive glass cannon. They're the same points, but Bloodletters can actually get there. Because Zangors with Gaze of Fate, you've got an 8-inch charge rerolling 1 dice. Whereas Bloodletters have a 3d6 plus 1-inch charge, and if they're in range of a Khorne character, assuming you have a mono Khorne detachment, they're rerolling failed charge rolls.
That's
which is really powerful.
So cool.
So what I'm just curious. What characters do you run when you go Khorne?
So typically, so in that list, I was running a Skull Reaver Demon Prince.
Oh, cool.
So it's a Demon Prince with the Skull Reaver Relicac, which is flat d6, and it rerolls wounds against Titanic keyword. So on the charge, it's Strength 11, AP minus 5, I believe.
That's too many.
Damage d6. So again,
too many. You have like 3 up invulnerable saves for a laugh.
Well, it was first played against me by Alex Petford, who's a great player. I think he came 7th at LVO last year. And it was in his 144 Plague Bearer list.
Jesus Christ.
And he coupled it with the Forbidden Gem, the Sinesh Herald. Yeah. Board control for days, plus the Nurgle tree, so they can advance and charge. And
does he just like hate you?
Well, no. This is at a tournament. This is an
okay.
Hates the world.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to make
hates
friends.
Having fun. No. For someone with such an oppressive list. He is the loveliest dude. But
No, I hate him.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
because he
yeah.
enjoys watching you cry.
yeah, exactly. Well,
We're just like
Who
that
doesn't?
that light leaving your eyes when you see the list on the
slowly
table.
strangling it out. But
You know, Stormfront. She's like, look at.
oh god, have you guys watched the Boys finale episode?
Oh,
I've
not
said
yet, not yet.
tangents are allowed apparently. Okay,
No,
not
no
yet.
spoilers. I haven't started it yet.
Okay,
You knew we were doing
it's
a
pretty
podcast and
there.
you didn't watch it.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Just the ending scene was.
Oh,
Don't-
yeah,
don't
all
even.
of it's great.
Don't even.
Where was I? Blood
When Harry
letters.
Potter
painting
turned
stuff.
up, that was crazy.
when Harry Potter turned up.
Yeah, we'll get more onto the demons' tactics in games played, but blood letters are great. Finished 30 of them. I went for the blend on the power sword, the quartered blend. So that took a while on 30.
Are you still doing the classic red?
Yeah,
classic-
red skin. So I actually contrasted the skin, but then dry brushed and then edge highlighted, just on the face and the neck, just to add a little bit of visual interest to them. So 30 blood letters basically done. Just need to finish basing. If you're part of the Gecko Secret Santa, stop listening now for the next 30 seconds.
Ooh.
Another big project I'm working on is a Secret Santa gift, which we do every year with just a small group of the geckos, about 10 of us, which is my 40k team. And I am working on a converted Primaris Ancient. Lots of green stuff, Space Wolf. So a big green stuff banner, green stuff fur cloak, beard,
cool.
moustache, mutton chops,
Man, that's so much time.
Uh,
That's cool.
So he's still in. I'm waiting for the green stuff to cure, and then I'm gonna keep on with him.
What's the base model for that?
The Primaris Captain,
Which one? There are
the,
several.
the boxed one that comes with the Stalker bolt rifle or the sword like that.
The sword like out
Yes.
front.
The head, like the the helmets with the hair.
Yeah,
on
so
top.
you've got the helmet, the sort of the
The
Romanesque.
mohawk.
I don't know why I'm doing it.
The mohawk.
Yeah, it's
My
not
favourite
a
thing
visual
about
medium.
this, listeners, is that all three of them right now have got their hands above their head.
No, it's the helmet that's designed to like clean underneath a horse.
Yeah,
Like a
Yeah,
brush.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
brush.
it's
Yeah.
like
That
a-
sounds-
a
I don't know if that's
toothbrush.
actually true.
That
but I
sounds
don't know
so
what it's
good,
from.
and we didn't
That
tell you,
sounds
but
cool.
so we do have a tradition here where if you come on the show for the first time, you must bring a gift for each of the three.
Oh, really?
people.
So
I'll
can
take
I?
a blood letter.
So mine are these strawberry laces. So that. The other thing I've started is I've got. Do you guys know what a KVISSLE is?
Not at all.
It's an
Do you guys?
IKEA letter tray, and it's a fucking godsend. Sorry, swearing's allowed, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. It's a fucking godsend. This is a bitchin' ass piece of. It's great. It's great gear.
Bitching off.
It's
That is the poshest thing I've ever heard you say.
It's a letter tray, and each of the trays is metal backed. It's a sheet, and with a small thin layer of cork on top. So it's essentially a DIY Magna case that costs, I think it's 20 quid from IKEA, and
Oh, sweet! You gotta get
it
one.
fits perfectly in the tabletop Tyrant's case. It's a bit of a squeeze, but it fits into a shoulder bag. That again is 25 quid. So
I
you're
feel like
getting.
getting up and leaving because I spent 200 quid on a actual Magna case.
So yeah, I mean, I was part of a WhatsApp group for a while that was called the KVISSLE Lounge, where everyone just gushed about it, and
Oh wow.
so yeah, you just chuck a magnet on the bottom of your base and you can chuck it in this letter tray, and it's
We'll have one of these in the link for this, guys. In the
in the show notes.
Show notes.
So yeah, I've started magnetizing my hundreds of models
Oh my
because I
God.
want to switch everything to the KVISSLE.
Yeah.
And go because I've got the old chunky Games Workshop cases with the two big clasps.
Oh yeah.
That they're a bit of a struggle, especially you look like a massive neek on the tube.
I'm the same, mate.
That's what I'm
Like
thinking.
I've my first two armies are two very round armies, which were Tau and Space Marines, which were perfect for the GW cases. But yeah, the Gene Stealers are way too spiky.
That's
and
so spiky. Yeah,
It's-
just opening your case and finding a broken off finger or something is gutting.
That's the exact problem I had with Custodies. It was always like spears and plumes and stuff breaking off, and you're just like,
Yeah.
this is just depressing.
It's heart wrenching,
My
especially
Repulsed Executioner doesn't have any antennas anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although
exactly.
I've got to say, I completely disagree. I don't know whether it's because I've got a slightly different case or whatever, but I completely disagree about the having the box on the tube, because I always feel like people think I'm like a businessman or something, or like a workman or something like I do a really like properly man's job. they don't know I've just got a box of toys.
This is a really old school one that's like red or green and it says Warhammer on the
No,
front.
no.
It's like this big. It's like a big suitcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, those don't make you look cool. There's
Yeah.
no way of making that look cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried, and I like to think I pull it off, but
You're a stylish man, but even that's got its limits.
yeah, for sure. And the last thing is, I feel like I'm talking a lot, is 40k. So I play a bunch of RPG games, mostly D&D, but I'm also doing a 40k RPG, which I've written up homebrew rules for, based mostly off D&D 5th edition. And the party who I did my last campaign with have been reaching out, asking me to do another one.
That's cool.
So I've written some preliminary ideas for them, because the last session sort of ended with, I knew one of the players had to leave because of work commitments, and he was a psyker, and the party made the choice to not turn him in. Half the party were like, we should kill him now, burn the witch. they're all Imperial Guardsmen. And the other two were like, oh no, he's saved us, blah, blah, blah. He's clearly a benevolent witch. And he got possessed, and he was the boss sort of the end of the campaign, which none of the players knew was coming, which was fun.
That's cool. Wait, so you decided to play that like a system based on D&D rather than the
Wrath and Glory.
Yeah, that's what.
So yeah, so I didn't want to do Wrath and Glory partially because of the balancing mechanics. I wanted a Marine to feel like a Marine. I didn't want a Marine to have similar, because Wrath and Glory tries to equalize the outputs across the party. So if you have a Commissar next to a Marine, the Commissar will do as much damage as
I was going to
a
say,
Marine.
Do you want to explain what Wrath and Glory is? Because not everyone will know.
So Wrath and Glory is the current supported Games Workshop role-playing game system. I haven't actually played it, but I've watched bits of it and I've read through the rules, and it's I can imagine it being quite good, but again, it didn't really fit what I wanted. And the old style rules that have Marines being tanks, for example, Dark Heresy, there's so many different modifiers to your roles you have to remember, and my party had never played any RPGs before, so I didn't want to force them to learn a big book of rules.
That is awesome. I
That's
absolutely
really
love
cool.
that. That's so cool.
I've always been interested in
fun.
D&D from a distance, but never really got into it.
Dude, so have you played any D&D yet?
I have played D&D, yeah.
Dude, like I've played one campaign so far, and it was with Will, who's in our group, in Battlefield Bermondsey, and oh my god, I had so much fun. It was amazing. I don't know what your experience was.
Yeah, no, I've always really liked it. I just I think it's just the time thing. Like obviously COVID notwithstanding, I always find Warhammer takes up so much of my hobby, and then you have to account for the times of the week I'm just lazy, and then work, and then there's not
we
much
need
time
time to
left.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that
sure.
job that we all have to have.
Oh god, jobs.
Yeah. Once I win the lottery though, 100% I'll be doing D&D.
What would you do if you won it? Would you buy a Battlefield Bermondsey clubhouse?
Oh, I mean, technically,
I would just pay all the clubhouses to keep these guys out.
just have us banned from Bad Moon.
I'd build my own fortress monastery.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think there is a real incentive if you want a crap ton of money, because we all love the hobby so much to, like obviously we all know the value of how like places like Bad Moon Cafe to curate another one of them maybe in like a different part of London.
Yeah.
Because like if it wasn't for Bad Moon Cafe, like loads of people probably wouldn't play the game because they just wouldn't have access to play the game. So I think I would definitely want to do something similar to that.
I like that's how your lot's first thought. My first thought was I'll have all the armies.
See, I couldn't ever
27
do that.
Baneblades, please.
Oh no, dude. See, like I couldn't ever do that because like my hobby is so specific. So like because I'm such a like narrative player, like obviously all my custodians have names, like all of my Imperial fists. I'm trying to do the battle company thing, but it's like super difficult at the moment. I think we might talk about that.
So Garrison moved companies
He's
outside of that.
on secondment to the 5th. Okay,
He's overseeing them.
I should say the name bit though. I literally ordered the names for mine yesterday because Ed and Quipster were talking about it with me yesterday, and I ordered, I think it's like 20 names.
Oh, amazing.
So
Actually,
I mean, the back of the books were quite handy to get some of the names for them, but Blood Angels is just like a Google Saints, so it was quite good.
Actually, I was going to say, talking about this, quick shout out to versatileterrain.com, who's the guy who makes all of the 3D prints all of these nameplates, and they're just amazing. Honestly, I think they add like so much to like my personal hobby, if not anyone else's, because You got a special one recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I recently got them for my Gene Stealer cult. It is funny. Some people really don't like them. It is interesting. But yeah, I'm with you. I absolutely love them. I think it's just because you have Gene Stealer cult is so character driven, like in the game to play with. So it just kind of makes them feel more. But the problem I find is like I just. I don't, and like I said in the last time we did this, like lots of people don't know Gene Stealer Cult, and it doesn't help when I just refer to the characters by my names. And I'm rerunning ones because of the red, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? What are you talking about?
What is that?" Wait, which one is the red?
The red is the Calamorph in my army.
See, even with the actual name, I have no idea what that is or what it does.
He's the cowboy guy. Yeah, no,
I love the gunslinger.
That's a cool model.
Yeah, it is.
Him versus the new Necron cowboy. That's what I want to see.
The hex mark.
The hex mark.
Yeah, but wouldn't he just dick all over the hex mark? Because I thought the hex mark has just got lots of guns, but they're all like one damage.
The hex mark, and this is like Auspex scan got better. The hex mark is going to be absolutely brutal against Gene Stealer Cult because he can move after you deep strike, and then he can just shoot you once you've deep struck.
And he's like the Kelemorph in that if he scores a hit, he fights again.
And his weakness is like low strength, but it's like, I don't have any armor save
So cool
either.
though.
Oh my god!
He can just pick a unit after I've deep struck and kill it, basically. Which is
Wait, how does Auspex scan get better? I've got the book and I didn't even read it.
well, I guess they took away the -1, but I guess technically Chapter Master won't be as prevalent, so I guess it kind of evens out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so my hobby progress, I actually had a great week. I built 10 Kalians and I built 10 Katachan guard, and they all fell to the way of the Four-Armed Emperor. I've never painted a guardsman before, which it was really kind of, I don't know, satisfying to paint a guardsman. It felt like something I should have done. I was like, I can't believe I've never painted a guardsman before. And the Kalian models are just so like, they're just obviously so 40k, and the Katachan models are just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
They're just so fun.
They just don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like none of their proportions make any sense at all.
Aren't they strength 4 as well?
Yeah.
So they're strong as a marine.
Yeah.
Just like some
But
random
then
dude.
looking at the model, you can kind of see that they
Literal Rambos.
They've been hitting the juice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
just
death
a bit.
oil juice, yeah.
It's just like, because the kits, like, I remember I was first getting into hobby when Katachans first came out. Like, their poses are just awful.
They're not the most. Yeah, there are issues with them, but it is funny though because I think what we're seeing now with Sergeant Ripper and Colonel Powerfist Guy
Strachan. Colonel Ironhand Strachan.
No, the
Sergeant
special one.
Well, Jackson is what everyone's calling him from.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
what's his name?
Powerfist Guy. Anyway,
So
Colonel,
cool.
like, because with them, I suspect, and this is just a massive hypothetical theory of mine, is that that is GW testing the waters for potentially doing plastic kits for the old Guard regiments. We obviously know they are. Guard are obviously ridiculously important for 40k, and there has been a big outcry. I think it was Striking Scorpion or someone did a big campaign a year or so ago about getting new Guard kits, and like it's a big
thing.
ask for a lot of the community. But I think from GW's point of view, it's how much money can we make, and that's what they want to know.
Yeah.
If I'm entirely honest, like this is something I've been thinking about for a while now. Like, for those kits to replace them, what would you really need other than a heavy weapons team, a command cadre, and a
But they already do the upgrade
plastic
kits
box.
for the Marines, right? So like my Blood Angels, I've bought
They're
the
very
upgrade
different.
kits.
It's very different.
Can you
though.
not just do that for?
Well, no, because like
Like a Cadian and a Valhallan, and not like a Cadian
Yeah.
with
It's
a
not just
funny
a different
hat.
head.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, and this is something I've been actually quite surprised about that they've not done as much, is when they come out with these new plastic kits, I will bet money that they'll bring out Tanith as a regiment you can play.
There's a bunch of regiments in the lore that are like
I'm not sure.
You think?
I don't think so.
Why?
Because I don't. Well, because of what Ed just said, they don't. They don't think. Oh, we want to satisfy the law monkeys out there. We want
There's
to
a
make
demand.
that. Is there?
Yeah, I think so. Because like, A,
I don't know.
how cool would those kits look, but also B, they've done it before. Tanith used to be a playable option.
Yes, they did, but they only had a single kit. It was a metal kit, and they were meant to represent the core characters of the ghosts. For example, you had, I think, a Larkin sniper.
There was an infantry kit. There was because this is back in the day when they had ballistas. And there was a
God had ballistas?
Yeah, I know. It was like the metal blister packs with just
I didn't know that.
with
so
like troop
cool.
models in it. And annoyingly, it had 3 in the box.
Wow.
And it was one of the only times I've ever seen that they had, and this was back in the day, so this would have been like 2002, they had a female guardsman in the Tanith kit.
Yes, they did. I'm thinking of the same box. I thought they were meant to represent, because I know you got Gaunt as well. I thought they were meant to represent the actual...
Sorry, now we're just nerding out about Gaunt's ghosts.
No,
I thought they were meant to represent the actual ghosts. I might be wrong, of course.
I also may be wrong.
But but that's I'm not sure how much demand there is for it, because I think obviously your Catachans and Cadians would sell by the bucket load, and I think you are right.
And stuff like that. I'd buy it.
Yeah.
If they did a Praetorian Guard, I'd buy that straight away, because that's what I want to do.
I suspect they probably have more data than we think. I suspect they do know which things will sell. But yeah, I was going to say, like, the one I am not that fussed about them updating is the Catachan range, and the only reason for that is because I like that they're just ridiculous. I just think they're really fun. But I will buy one of each when they come out, because my thing, I just want to have a Brood Brothers version of every single regiment eventually.
I think
it would just be really, really fun.
That's
That'd
such
be
a
so
cool
cool.
idea. I love that.
And like, the fluff would just be they're just nuts, and they just actually each squad just actually thinks that they're part of that regiment. That's
such a good call.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely, like, I cannot tell you how much I love the fluff behind your Genestealer cults.
Yeah, would you farm them up?
Well, so I did the bases this week. So I've actually kind of, because I also wanted them to be a little bit separate. So I've actually, base wise, they kind of are half on the farming, because the rest of my Genestealer cults are on, like, it looks like ploughed fields, which is, you know what plowed fields looks like. Don't know why I'm explaining that. And then so they look like they're half on that, and then half of them is on like a path that goes down the down the farm, and they're called the FDF. So they're going to be the Farm Defense Force. So I'm going to do tattoos on the Catachan, and then obviously Cadians have got their.
Yeah, something I found out is
Yeah.
if you need a hay bale made and a miniature version in a miniature scale, the Sandman is your man.
Yeah. That was.
You just make
incredibly
sandbags.
fun.
Really forgot your name.
Wait, that reminds me. Did you finish Spud?
Spud is nearly finished.
Is that what we're calling the Patreon?
I was waiting on more basing materials that actually arrived today. So
You played a game with him now, haven't you?
I played a game.
How did he do?
He died turn 2.
Wait, for new listeners, do you want to explain who Spud is?
Well, yes, Spud is my. I have 2 patriarchs, and one of them is inadequate in his duties, and yeah, I mean, he died turn 2. He's that kind of leader. He's just a bit hopeless, and Lord Avery is kind of sick of his shit, and it's just kind of it's creating a bit of a rift, I think, to be honest. But yeah, no, he tried. He tried, and then he actually, he saw that the Raptors had gotten a bit too close, and he was like, well, they need to die. So he took care of them, but then a bunch of Khorne berserkers.
That's very rude.
They kind of they.
I mean, not a lot.
They did what Khorne
survives.
berserkers do. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, not a lot survives against Khorne berserkers.
Cool. So, I mean, there's a good segue there. So, should we move on to kind of games played? Has anybody played any games recently?
Oh,
Well, it's funny you should say that. So, me and Rezza are in the Bad Moon League. For those people who are out there who don't know what it is, basically, Bad Moon Cafe is a board game cafe in London, and they have a league based on, I think it's 20 pods, something like that.
Yeah, in and around that.
Might be a little bit less now because of
COVID.
Yeah, I
and
think
stuff.
it's in the teens.
Yeah. So yeah, based on pods, and there's about 6 or 7 guys per pod, and Rezza happens to be in my pod.
Yeah.
So
Which pod is that?
Pod 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weirdly, last season I won my pod, didn't lose a game, and I'm on a pod 2 divisions lower. So it's just really. But anyway, I think more people joined.
Yeah, there's like 100 and something people in the league now.
Varies with competitiveness though.
Yeah, I think at the top, it's so weird because like at the top end, it's like we are the best 40k player in cruise waving. Like,
No, I'm kidding. It was ironic wave.
yeah, but I don't know.
Well,
you're very good.
That's sweet of you to say.
We need a game.
I didn't hear that. I heard you were shit, mate.
No, I do all right. I think I finished 4th for Heretic Astartes in the ITC ladder last year for Europe, and I think
I'm all right. Yeah.
I think like 10ish
4th for a whole
worldwide just
faction.
after. No, that's Europe. So then, like, what, like with Americans in like around.
Yeah, but
10.
Europe's a big place, man.
Yeah, true. No,
Well, 10, that would be 10 in a world then with America.
yeah, I think it was 10, 11. Yeah, sorry, yeah, back into Mike, yeah. But again, you get prizes just for showing up with Heretic Astartes in 8th up until Possess
yeah.
Bomb, so.
I will say you guys had it a little bit tough.
Yeah,
But
yeah, sort of.
yeah. Anyway, back to games played.
Yeah,
So
if
we
we have
had we had our pod game yesterday, and I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be very interesting because Rezza, you took what was your list?
I'll say I'm learning with. Well, I guess we both bought a list we thought of fun, but we played it kind of competitively.
I think we played very competitively,
Yeah.
both of us.
So my list was I had the Indomitus Captain, Indomitus Lieutenant, as I said Lieutenant, guys, and a Librarian, Primaris Librarian, and then I've had like 25 Assault Intercessors, 1 squad of Incursors, 2 of the Bike Squads, 5 Blade Guard because I quite haven't got my 15 yet.
I thought you took 6.
No, I took a Blade Guard veteran. No, the Banner Guy.
Oh, the Banner Guy, of
Banner
course.
Guy. I had the Apothecary, which was really good, a Judicia, some Sanguinary Guard, which actually were the biggest flop in my list, to be honest.
You think?
Well, they came in, waved at your captain that my lieutenant killed,
Yeah.
and didn't really do much else.
It
They got me some engage points, but
yeah, that's true.
but the Apothecary, the Apothecary is amazing.
The
6 up on
Apothecary was horrendous.
Yeah, just
like,
brought back units for models for fun, and the Judicia obviously. Well, we actually talk about how it happened in the game. So Alex beat me by a point, but it was really, really close.
So close.
And then I think the big turning point. So Alex has this. Well, if you've seen his Terminators, he's got a big bomb of, was it 8 Terminators?
Yeah, so this time I took 8 in the list because I took the Vindicar as well. And
So you just don't take the one that's badly painted? Is that?
No, that was there.
See, ironically, like there is actually one that's badly painted. It's just not the one you guys have pointed out. But
So
like,
there's 2 then.
Yeah.
all right, fucking hate you. These cunts aside. But yeah, no. So I had to drop one of the Terminators to bring in the Vindicar Assassin, and I take him because he's fun and I like him basically, not because he's a competitive choice. However, Rezza brought 6, 7 characters.
I bought too many.
So many
Yeah.
characters. So yeah, like
I just I got the idea of all the buffs in the world. So like I had Might of Heroes going off, the Psychic Fortress, which is a 5-up.
Mortal Wound Shield. No,
It's
the Invulnerable.
Vulnerable
Yeah,
save now.
Invulnerable save one, yeah.
That's really good. I had that. Then the Judicia, which I just my favorite model.
So when we talk about the Judicia, like that was my biggest mistake in the game. So one thing I've
Did you point at someone very angrily?
don't even fucking.
I had to spend 3 CP to do it because stupidly I told Alex not to do something, and then he moves his models, and I was like, I'm gonna have to spend CP to 6-inch heroically intervene. So then I can point at you and go, you're not fighting. And then my Blade Guard went manual.
That was such a big turning point for the
That
game.
does make us. He's lost a lot of utility, but I guess that makes him much more useful as Blood Angels. That stratagem.
Yeah, but I mean, so we'll probably get onto the index, but I mean, that one stratagem we kept is a good stratagem. It's not free CP though, because it's one unit, one model heroically intervening 6 inches.
That to me, it sounds like a 1 or 2 CP
On the
strat.
Judicia though, that's arguably worse.
Yeah, it's good,
Yeah.
but then it wouldn't need it if they kept the Judicia at 6 inches. Because I mean,
6 inches obscene.
Yeah.
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
one because like the
I want all my
Nurgle-
toys.
yeah, well, Nurgle get that guy who the smelly guy, right?
Yeah, I think that will change.
The blind
Yeah.
bloke,
That's
But so then basically I did the you fight last, and then my Blade Guard took out 5 of your Terminators.
Well, let's take it back a bit. So basically, I think it was turn 2. One of the big decisions I always have to make with a big bully unit of Alaris Terminators is where are they going to go? Because where they drop on the board is the turning point for me in the game. Because if I misdeploy them in any way, I've lost. Full stop. Because that's 8 models that are worth 630 points by themselves. So I decided to use the Vixilla.
Death Star problems, isn't it, guys? Like,
literally.
They
I
up
took
back,
an unkillable ball of death, and
They
people
got
wouldn't let me
15
put it
points.
right in the middle
But
of their
this is
army.
the thing. they weren't unkillable because basically what happened was I used the Vixilla Teleport Homer, which is a 3 CP strat for Custodies, which is
for
essentially
free. You used it, by the way.
I did use it for free because that's Trajan and Valoris' ability.
Once per game.
Yep, once per
Brutal.
game. Your next strat is free.
Is that not capped at 1 now, though?
It's once per game.
No, but
Yeah.
is it not capped at 1 CP?
No.
Because
you
the-
tell
the
me he
match-
won by
the
1
match
point by
play
cheating?
the match play rules. It's like the Harlequins relic. The match play rules now override anything that says you get more than 1 CP back.
Where's the
Oh
legal?
no,
no,
this isn't
it's-
you get it back. This is the next strat is free.
Is 0.
Oh,
Possibly,
yeah,
okay,
it's
0.
to use
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wording, yeah.
So yeah, basically I was able to use that to use this 3 CP strat, and it's unbelievably powerful.
Well, then what you did next with it was even worse because you did that.
Yeah, so with Custodies you can do a couple of things with strats that are horrendous. So basically I dropped 8 Alaris Terminators wholly within 6 inches of the banner guy that I had, but within 4 of any enemy unit. And then I spent 2 more strats. One was to double the shooting from the Terminators, which means there's 8 of them rapid firing with damage 2 weapons, doubling that, and they've got grenade launchers on top. And there's another strat on top of that, which is you can just, I think it's 1 or 2 CP, you just put on the Terminators, and they go, right, now they can just target any character.
Yes.
And
this is
it's horrendous.
So he
Yeah, this is
earned
why people hate
15
Custodies.
victory points on Assassinate
I immediately
in one
killed,
turn, basically.
in one turn, I brought down the Terminators and killed 4 characters immediately.
Yeah, he killed.
That's-
Brutal.
It was
Yeah,
unreal.
he killed. The only thing he left alive was the Judicia, to be honest.
And that was my mistake.
Yeah.
Because I had thought that what's the
Ancient.
banner?
So like,
Blade
yeah.
Guard Ancient was the one I should have been really gunning for, but it
Yeah.
wasn't because I didn't quite understand how the powers worked. And yeah, it left the Judicia there, and then the Blade Guard fought first and wiped out half the squad of Alaris Terminators.
I was so happy. They're my favorite models.
Like literally, I'm
With the
looking at
Judicia.
this.
They are
and
so good.
I'm looking at it, I'm just like, this.
Yeah.
How has this happened?
Luckily,
Like,
I had the
couldn't believe
captain to
it.
give because they're core, so get reroll. That was something that was really because the first time playing the new codex was re-rolling the ones. They just went through it, and then my Redemptor came in and finished them off next turn. Just
Yeah,
bopping them on the head.
absolutely battered the Terminators in a way that's basically
You know,
never happened.
it was a really close game. 1 point in it. I'm quite happy with a new new codex. I've lost half my stratagems and stuff, so
yeah,
it's quite. If I played them as White Scars, I
You'd
feel
have won.
like, yeah, it would have been
100%. You would have won.
But then I wouldn't know what I was doing at all. So
But this is the thing, like, and we'll probably go into this later. Like, you're a very good player now. Like, you think strategically, and you know basically the ins and outs of your army.
stop it.
But it's true,
No,
and
keep
like,
going.
this is something I think is quite prevalent in London because like it's easy to find games here. So you do end up playing a lot of games, especially with us because we're in Battlefield Bermondsey, we're in the league, we've got Bad Moon, we've got the London Wargaming Guild. Like, if any of us wanted to, we could play like 20 games a week.
Well, it's weird to think because I've been in the hobby exactly a year. Played my first tournament was Fun and Fluff probably almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And that was my 3rd game of Warhammer ever. And then now I've played 3 tournaments now, competed in 2 of the Bad Moon leagues, and just had loads of friendly games in between. So I God knows how many games I've played and how much money I've spent on the hobby in a
Well,
year.
probably best not to think.
Not
about that.
enough.
More to come. But that was the game. I've got another game tomorrow, which I'm playing Gene Stealer Cult,
nice.
which I need to really think about. I'm going to change my list up at all. I'll probably bring less characters because it brings that many characters. It's like Assassinate, such an easy choice.
You just give away the secondary.
Yeah, so I'll probably change that. But overall, I liked the kind of style list it's going with, and I keep going just playing Blood Angels because if a month or two a supplement comes out, I want to be in a place where when that supplement comes out, I kind of have a good grounding.
Well, you were saying you were thinking about kind of going pure Blood Angels, weren't you? And kind of maybe repainting some of your.
Yeah, so I mean, so I've got 2 armies at the moment, which are Ultramarines and the Blood Angel, well, my custom chapter, which I mainly play as Blood Angels. But just thinking with a money head on, what's the point of having 2 chapters? I might as well just strip half of them and then play all of them as a custom chapter. So just strip my Ultramarines because I want to play Ultramarines as them. There's nothing stopping me, and even though it might not be fluffy for some people's eyes, but I mean, I'm not made of money, so and I don't want to have to buy like 2 Repulsed Executioners if I want to have 1 for each army. That's a bad example because I wouldn't use a Repulsed Executioner for my Blood Angels, but
Would
I
you
want to
not?
have that option.
Or a Redemptor, say.
Yeah.
Or a Redemptor, say.
No, I did. I used a Redemptor yesterday.
Oh yeah, but as in you don't want to buy multiple Redemptors if
Yeah,
you want to
or
run.
loads of ATVs or.
I wasn't thinking about buying 3 Redemptors. God, what? Who would do that?
Well, I have 4 Victor Warsuits now. If I was to do that, because I had 2 for my Ultramarines, and now I'm going to have 2 for my Blood Angels.
That is a lot of Invicta Warsuits.
Well, you only ever bring 3, so it's just I'm in a awkward position. But then again, if I was to restart the hobby again, I would have done that. I would have just made 1 chapter, and then I would have learned that you could play them as basically whatever you want to play
Just
them
quarter the scheme, quarter Blood Angels, and quarter Ultramarines.
Yeah, but that's what something I'm thinking of doing. Just because, also I like having my own fluff around the, like what you've done with your Gene Stealer cult. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's interesting how people do the hobby in different ways, isn't it? Because some people are all about that my guy mentality, and they just I want my guy, my story, and that's what is going to feed my drive in the hobby. And then some people are like, I want. Not just I want the 4th company of the Ultramarines.
Yeah, the meticulous recreations.
Yeah,
And it's exactly what Josh is
and it's like, so why have you got a power maul and a plasma pistol? Because he has a power maul and a plasma pistol. That is exactly what he has.
Big respect for that.
that's really cool.
For sure. If any of you listeners are that kind of person, please message me because I would love to be your friend.
That's so
well,
awesome.
if they're going to message you,
just,
where are they going to message you?
The Sandman hobby, yeah,
on Instagram.
Nice.
with the spud and a new drawing of you as a
yes. Oh yeah, we've got to shout out your bro.
Yeah. So he's currently working through painting the host of this podcast as models from their army. So I'm painted as a assault intercessor. Not painted.
Which took him like a day. Took him like a day.
Yeah, it took him a day.
And I think he hates me now.
Well, it took mine 1 a day. It took you a couple days
Yes.
for your what is it?
It's a patriarch.
A patriarch with your face on it. And then he's currently working on Adams as a librarian.
And it does look as terrifying as you imagine it to be,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen.
It's the tongue that gets me.
Yeah. That's actually
cool.
that is based off me. That's not the patriarch.
Yeah, so that's cool.
Women love me.
Well, woman loves you.
No.
We've got a real massive segue, but yeah. So that was our game we played. How about have you played any game recently, Karim?
Well, was that the only game you played, Alex? Because you guys were
mean-
sort of mixing that one.
Yeah, basically, because I've just been on this hobby spree for the last couple of weeks. It's literally the last. And in our pod WhatsApp group, I've had a couple of the other guys blasting me, just I need a game, and I've just been quietly ignoring them.
That's not very nice.
Yeah. I'm currently 2 wins, 2 losses overall. So I've got my last game tomorrow.
That's pretty good going.
Yeah, I'm reasonably happy. I mean, the one I lost a game against the Dark Angels player where I just played stupidly.
Was that against Rob?
Was that against new Dark Angels or old Dark Angels?
Old Dark Angels. But I had just played the Badman Rumble and I lost every game. So I went to the next day thinking, and then I just wasn't thinking, and then decided to go first. Moved all my stuff out when he had nothing I could shoot at, and then he just moved out second turn and shot everything. And I was like, my army's dead. Pretty much almost tabled me turn 1, and then just to get any points on the board, surviving as long as I did was an achievement. I forgot.
Bear in mind though, Rob Jeffs is a phenomenal player.
Yeah, very good player. Then I've lost against you, and then the other 2 I've won against an Eldar and Tyranids.
To be honest though, I'd be intrigued to take the same list against you when your codex comes out. That would be very interesting to do.
I'd be very intrigued to see the same list once your codex comes out and they balance some of the stupid shit custodies have.
Well, yeah, that's something we should actually talk about. The fact that I had a -1 chainsword that was still having you doing 2-up saves.
Yeah, because
it's just blowing my mind a little bit.
It's like
So-
the stacking of those stratagems.
Well, no,
and
it's
everything that prevents damage for those Terminators is not something the rules designers thought about.
Well, actually, to be fair,
that was just a normal troop.
That specific.
No, the Terminators.
So for the strat that Sandman is talking about for the Alaris Terminators is there's a 1 or 2 CB strat for Custodes that came out with Psychic Awakening. That means AP -1 and AP -2 count as AP 0 for the Terminators.
Oh, you tried to use that, but luckily I had power swords.
Yeah, so it's -5, and I'm just like, oh wow, that's just fucking
-4
great.
at that point. I
Yeah.
think.
But so
Only -4.
So someone will be like, "You cheated."
Yeah. No, but
But-
I think obviously 3-up invents are on the way out.
I think so,
transhuman is being limited as we've outside of Dark Angels, and the stacking of the character sniping stratagems. It just doesn't make any sense for Custodies to be the best character snipers in the game, and it massively ruins the game when that happens. So once those go, Custodies will be a hell of a different army to play.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, and this is something you've said previously, like, I disagree with you. Basically, what you said.
Do you like play Custodies?
Yeah. But yeah, so Sandman, previously you've said Custodies are a boring army to play.
Yes, that's true.
Fundamentally disagree, and I was thinking.
I say this, I'm not biased in this. So, for example, if you wanted to say Tower a boring army in 8th edition, 100% agree with you. And I think Deathwing, as good as they are pretty boring now. But like
that's a surprise.
I mean, they are boring, but there's no decision making in what you play them. Like you're like, I'm going to bring down all these Deathwing Terminators and a banner, and it's like, okay, now they're basically impossible to kill. That's cool. Like there's no, like you said, like you in your description of your game against Rich, you went, I had to make an incredibly difficult decision, guys. I had to decide where to bring down my 8 Terminators. Yeah. Like play as Chaos or play as Blood Angels. The amount of decisions you have to make is just higher. It's just way more. It's exactly the same with Knights. You just don't have to make the decisions with Knights.
Well, and that's what a lot of people say you should try and force your opponent to do. Try and force them to make difficult decisions. Like try and move your units in such a way that they can't charge 2 key targets with one of their alpha units, and they've got to make those decisions.
I mean, the one thing I will say is the ability to drop down and immediately kill 4 characters in the same turn of shooting is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's another army in the game that has the capability of doing that.
But saying that, I think we both played that game. We were both making. Like, I tied up your bikes the whole game. You didn't.
Literally,
they didn't move from where they deployed.
But then
they didn't. You hit them turn 1.
No, so his he had a squad of 3. I don't know what you call them. 3 hover bikes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I managed to tag them first turn.
It's because you got first turn. You deployed on the line, and it's only 12 inches, so you made the charge.
Oh yeah.
I think Karim raises kind of the key point for me, which is like and it kind of leads on to this is this idea that the problem Custodies have, because when they go against an army like Harlequins, or they go against an army like White Scar, something that can really force them to make the decisions, Custodies just don't have the ability to adapt. And I love Custodies.
They'll
right?
lose.
Like
agree.
You and I talk so much about training, and this is why, because the Custodies are ridiculously prevalent in the meta at the moment, as it were. But as it exists, but like the problem is just I don't get why they made Custodies so bland. Like, could they just pay like bigger, more powerful Space Marines? Like for example, the central. I remember you and Liam talked about this when you played once, and I thought as soon as you guys said it, it really resonated with me because I love Custodies. I genuinely, no one can read Master of Mankind and not love Custodies.
Right, yeah.
So like. The central thing of Custodies is how they all fight as individual units, and if you did that for 20 models, it would be fine. It would be absolutely fine, and you can make them interesting and give them different stats and different abilities and make it complicated. Make them an army unlike anything. Don't just make them hit on 2s.
No, if each one was basically an HQ but had the variation you'd see in an HQ.
Yeah.
So one is very nippy.
Essentially,
exactly.
like mini Knights.
And it would work.
Just make them more
because
characters. That'd be so cool.
There's only 18 models on the board, and a few of them are tanks and characters.
Yeah.
So that happens anyway. I just think, and this is the thing, because it works before you against you. So this is why I don't like Custodies. It's not that I think they're the best army in the game. I really don't think that. But it's because against some armies, against the below tier, they struggle, and they don't just struggle because the maths is so against you, and you just can't do the damage unless you roll a crap ton of 1s and 2s. And then against the high tier armies, the Custodies players really struggle because all of a sudden they just can't adapt to.
Well, yeah, and that's why
you don't have the ball control.
Well, the meta Custodies that you see, I mean, I think the last Custodies I saw that placed in the top 4 featured an Ares gunship and 2 Caladiuses.
Really?
Like if you do Unleash the Lions or something, I'm like, fair play. That's a cool list. This doesn't extend to those lists. Like, that's awesome. But this is the thing.
Sure.
The Unleash the Lions is kind of the point. Like, everybody wants to do that because it's so awesome. Just make it so that is a thing.
So for anyone out there who doesn't know, Unleash the Lions is a strat for Custodies Terminators, whereby if you put it on a Terminator squad, each individual model counts as a unit, so they can all move in individual directions and stuff and do their own thing. It's amazing. I've used it once and it was hilarious.
And they're all obsec, and it's so cool.
Wait, so you would have 8 Terminators individual?
Yeah. Each one's an individual unit.
Just
So
going fucking off,
cool.
Yeah.
kicking ass, taking names.
I mean,
It's
they
And
go
you named
good.
all of them as well.
They're
so
all
that's
named.
that's even cooler.
So actually, going back to our game really quickly, the fact that they're named turned out to be a really cool thing because, number one, my bikes did nothing, but they killed, 10 intercessors by themselves?
Yeah.
And then I had 2 guys on an objective, originally 3, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to get them on that objective, and then I'm going to support them later. Didn't have the manpower to send any support over to those 2 guys over on the flank who were on this objective, and they just fucking stood there on this objective murdering Astartes. They killed 15 Astartes by the
you
end.
killed 10 Assault Intercessors and 3 bikes, effectively. But then again, that's also the point where -1 chainswords with 1,000 attacks wasn't enough.
Yeah, because the shield, the way it works with Custodians at the moment, as far as I'm aware, is horrendous because the shield grants you a +1 to your save and also a 4-up invulnerable save. Custodians on top of that also have a rule whereby if you're battle forged, you get +1 to your invulnerable save, which means you have a 3-up invulnerable save and +1 to your save.
Yeah, it was
So
brutal.
They have a 1-up, 3-up with 1s always failing, basically.
Exactly.
He didn't roll enough ones.
And I'll be honest, I just hate 3-ups generally. I really don't like them in the game. And neither do the playtesters or GW apparently because they're all on the way out. But and I'm very glad to see the back of that.
So are there no instances of 3-ups anymore in the Necron Codex or the Space
Gulliman
Marine?
has it.
Gilliman,
Which makes sense. I get
Bobby
that.
G.
yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. They actually might
There's
update that because that's just in his codex.
Yeah.
And they just didn't FAQ that. That might
Yeah.
even change.
But there's a
we don't
relic
know.
also which allows someone to have it once during a turn, like a phase. One
Yeah.
phase. you
I
can
don't
have
mind
it.
Bobby G having it.
Yeah, I don't mind
he's
either.
Well, this is the
Primarch.
thing. I'm all right with Bobby G. I'm all right with Trajan.
Yeah.
And I'm all right with Eldrad. He can fucking have one. I don't care.
Fuck it,
But
Gulliman doesn't have that thing where you can only take some amount wins a turn. So I think if you're not going to have
No,
that,
it balances
then have
out.
the 3-up invulnerable save. That makes sense.
Yeah.
We've gone on a massive tangent.
And there are ways of stripping in buns, when everyone was running Smash Captains through the second half of 8th edition, most Chaos players I knew didn't leave home without Ahriman and Death Hex in their back
they're
pocket.
quite rare powers, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it depends on the meta, I guess. But
Null Zone.
yeah.
I mean, that's the other
but
thing.
Null
with-
Zone delivery is difficult.
And actually, to be fair, it's only ever worked for me once, and it was I managed a Null Zone. Magnus managed to not deny it, and then I just laughed as all my aggressors just went brap and annihilated him.
Nice. I mean, so games. I've also played one game recently. I played against Chaos, actually, and it was against an army that I think is awesome, which is the Creations of Bile, which is just so cool, which I also really like now. He didn't have them in his list, and I guess they'll be better once they're toons, but I imagine Warp Talons, because I guess a lot of people have been saying we might be getting into the age of the Lightning Claw in 9th edition, and I guess when you make things strength 5, that's got to really help. So the Lightning Claw, for those of you who aren't familiar, the rule for it is it's damage 1, it's AP -2, I think, and it rerolls wounds, and if you take 2 you get an extra attack, and Warp Talons get them in built part of the model.
I think the way it's worded now, I don't know. Tabletop Titans are talking about. You might get 2 extra attacks because I think it's per if you have a claw, you get an extra attack.
It looks like it says warp. It says 3. Well, for Vanguard veterans, they're particularly cheap, aren't they? They're 3
Yeah,
points.
I'm
but it does just say
excited,
does just say Lightning Claw.
Lightning Claw, you get an
Yeah.
attack. So if you
It
have
says-
2.
That's what. That's what.
That's the way. Yeah, so
I see.
I guess it might be the
think
way
it's
you've read it.
in the new Marine Codex. That's what I've seen people say. What Richard's saying, but I haven't looked into it myself.
Because you'd have
I thought you
5
were saying
attacks
you
on a
get 2.
charge.
Actually, we've got the Codex. Want to throw it over to me?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a
Whilst
good
we
point.
speak.
Okay.
It's like Vanguard Vex or something. So I've been thinking of running because they're cheap. Run them as like a missile. I mean, imagine. I don't even know if Def Comedy can take Lightning Claws because that even gets even crazier. But
That's a horrendous
They have 2
combo.
attacks base Vanguard Vets, then 2 attacks for the Lightning Claws and an attack on a charge.
Once you start getting to strength 5, like with Creations of Bile, you get +1 strength and movement. I think that becomes super exciting.
Yeah, that comes really interesting.
quite quickly.
Is it under the melee? Is it under the melee weapon list? Because I'm on the Vanguard sheet. Yeah. I'd say it there.
So yeah,
Keep talking.
Talking about your games played. So it was.
So yeah, sorry. So I played against Creations of Bile, which is a really cool list, and it was a lot of MSU. So it had a load of Khorne Berserkers and a load of Chaos Space Marines and some Chosen, and then Fabius Bile himself. Obviously, you have to take him, and then a Lord Discordant, and a bunch of other stuff, and I took the cult.
Was this James Hussein by any chance?
It was, yeah.
Cool. I thought it was just recognised the list.
Yeah, it was. I think it's kind of a new list for him actually as well. I think he's mixed it up.
It is.
And it was interesting. It was a funny one. I kind of felt this. I love myself here because people have been telling me for ages, like every game I've played, that like you want to go second. You want to go second versus Gene Stealer Cult because you lose your first turn, and so this was kind of ingrained in my brain. And then, but this is the thing: every other game I've played, I've lost the roll off, and so people have given me first turn, and I've gotten quite comfortable with it, and I quite like having first turn. So then I played against him, and it was also it was the first kind of assault based army I'd played. The other games were like Marines, kind of AdMech. They were pretty gunliney. And so I won the roll off, and I was like, I also really want to just shoot stuff for 2 turns before he can hit me. So I finally had the chance to go second, and I threw it away. So I did take that, and I did pretty well. I had a really strong first turn. I just killed a squad of cultists, which were like 19 strong. I killed a rhino and the Lord Discordant. And then he hit me back.
That's a great first turn.
Yeah. And then he hit me back as well with pretty hard. So he killed 2 rock grinders and then like a squad of acolytes. And then then we traded turn 2, where like I was like, well, screw it, and so I just threw these acolytes up, and they brought me Fabius Bile's head. And then he went, well, fuck this, and then he threw a Barbicorn Berserkers at me, and then he killed Spud.
Not Spud.
R.I.P. Spud. And and then after Spud died, he had a huge blob of Terminators as well with deep striking, and I obviously had a load of Gene Stealer Cults deep striking. So turn 2, there was actually pretty much nowhere for either of us to deep strike and kind of do decent damage. So then everything I held back till turn 3. At which point I think I'd killed enough, and I'd also killed enough, but also he still didn't really have a particular great place to deep strike. So the Terminators came down and they just blew the shit out of a Kelemorph, I think is what they did.
Wait, so you had like 8, 9 Terminators come down and kill, just all target one character?
I think they shot him, and then I think they did kill one other thing as well. Like, there's one thing in combat, one thing shooting. I can't remember what it was, but then obviously, then my Sanctus, Craig, he went he went in and just. But he did well. He did well against Terminators.
I can imagine you doing a game. So Craig's going to do this. I'd be like looking around the table, going, "Who's Craig?"
Well, technically, it's Craig and Big Mike, because Big Mike he has a little dude.
The little dude on his back. Yeah, I like that.
Oh. Wait, so what does the Sanctus do? Because I don't know anything about it.
So the Sanctus does 2.
Be very irritating if you have psychers.
I have a story you'll love, Karim. So I played against my friend AJ, and it was quite funny. So me and AJ, we give each other quite a lot of comments when we play. We like to play like that, and we'll be like, we'll talk about the game quite a lot afterwards. And I remember one of the things that for the first couple of turns, I kind of noted down on my phone was he's playing a bit cagey of Araman. Sorry, his list was Death Guard with 1,000 Suns detachment. Well, not anymore. Patrol now. and he had Mortarion, so it was for the warp time.
God, I hate Mortarion.
And so and he played really cagey with Araman. I was Araman's he's a pretty big deal. I would want that. He's pretty good in combat. He's good psychic support. I'd probably want him out. So I was like, I wrote down play less cagey with Araman, and then turn 3 he came out, and my Sanctus one-shotted him.
Oh, brutal. And it causes into perils.
Yeah, which is statistically very unlikely to be fair. But
so you write feedback for him.
Well, we just kind of like, I'll just make notes on my phone or whatever. Be like,
this
is how
I do that, especially when my opponents make really glaring mistakes, but I know we're playing competitively.
And, like, he knows Gene Stealer Cults like maybe even a bit better than me, because like I actually didn't know Gene Stealer Cults very well before I chose them. I kind of chose them because of a bunch of reasons, but not familiarity. That wasn't one of them. And so the Sanctus, to explain that, guys. So the Sanctus can take 2 weapons. So one is the dagger, which is normally what I take. and it's just like he's 2 damage dammer -2. He always hits on 2. He hits on 2s and he always wounds on 2s unless you're a Vicar or Titanic, which is pretty good. And he gets like 5 attacks. And the other thing he can take is a sniper rifle, which is obviously you can target characters. Ignores the lookout, sir. It is he hits on 2s. It is strength 4. It is, I think, just -1, and it's D3 damage. And if you take, and it does a mortal wound on a 6+, which you can make to a 5 with a relic. It used to be 4s, but RIP modifying by things by more than 1.
Lol.
So I got the 5 to wound, which is the mortal wound, and I did the damage. So I did D3 damage, and he perils us, and he failed the save. And Araman has a 3-up invuln. So it's I was very lucky to get this, and I rolled.
And again, this is something which you guys spoke about in the last episode. Araman's only got a 3-up invuln because he gets it if he's your warlord.
Yeah.
Should he be a warlord if
Well,
Morty's there?
That's
I
true.
suppose hit
Magister.
Magister. For 1 CP. That makes sense.
What
you
did Magister do?
Magister's Psychic Awakening, 1 CP to choose an additional warlord trait.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
But I mean, to be fair, you kind of have. I mean, you don't have to, but you really should make Morty a warlord trait. Just because he's a fucking Primarch.
Yeah.
But
What is his warlord trait?
I mean,
is it any good?
The Arch Contaminator?
yeah, it is Arch
Yeah.
Contaminator. But the problem being is that you kind of want Arch Contaminator and the helm that gives you a 4-up. Your demon is a 4-up invuln around your plague.
Yeah, so most people
plus
run it
4s.
on a Prince.
Yeah,
If they've got Morty as well.
And unless you want to pay 3 CP to take him in a super heavy auxiliary, you kind of want him in the Supreme Command detachment, so you get it for free. Which is probably what I think most people do, because also a lot of the time you want to bring him on from reserves, depending on what you're up against. Which means you're paying 6 CP for Morty potentially, which is a lot.
It does work though.
Yeah.
He's
19.
No, is he 19 power level or is it more? I can't remember.
I think it's 19 because it's just shy of 500. No, is it 490? Something like that.
I can't remember.
Yeah. But anyway, so it was a really good game, and it was kind of like I said, it was a really interesting test for me because I hadn't really played against a proper combat army before, because I was pretty in the other games I was really comfortable with just lobbing my rock grinders at my opponent, having some auto exploding abilities, but when he can like just chew me up, and he can just chew up anything I throw at him, that's a problem. So it was a good test.
Awesome. Is that all of our games played?
Kareem's
Break.
turn.
Let's take a break.
Kareem hasn't said yet.
I did play a game.
Oh shit! All right. End break.
We'll cut that. Short break.
Commercial break over.
Yeah, so I played a single game in the last week, and that was against my buddy Josh Pegman. I'm not sure where you guys are, but over here in London, there's a 10 p.m. Shutdown time for pubs and restaurants, that sort of thing, which includes most of our wargaming venues. So Badminton Cafe closed at 10, so we played 1,500 points, just so we had a little less pressure on us with time. And he was running Tyranids. He was running basically a copy of the Brisbane GT list that came, the NIS list that came second. For those who don't know, it's a large Warriors blob. It's an Exocarine. Well, in the Brisbane list it was 2, but because 1,500 points, 1. Big squad of Hive Guard, Zoanthropes, and a squad of Gene Stealers just to react, and then various gaunts for screening. And then my list was a Chaos Undivided list. First time I ran pure Chaos Demons of this type. And it was the Unkillable Lord of Change with that 3-up invuln, which Sandman loves. A Demon Prince with a Skull Reaver.
There's the scowl on your face just then.
Bloodletter Bomb, a Flamer squad, and a bunch of small characters just to raise my banners. So that was the idea behind the list, and it was the first time I was playing the list. Oh, and a bunch of Nurglings as well.
So the fact that you can fit so much in a list blows my mind, coming from like a Custodes player.
Well, and there's only 1,500 points, but
so many models to me.
Well, it was a tough game for me because I deployed my Lord of Change on the line to be in range of his Zoanthrope and Neurothrope, because I was like, +2 on my deny with 2 denies. And Josh very rudely opened up with 2 super smites that both did 6 mortal wounds to my Lord of Change.
Savage.
So punched straight from my 3-up invuln, and my Warlord trait means I'm -1 damage, but obviously it doesn't affect mortal wounds. I did have a 6-up Feel No Pain. For every Feel No Pain I pass, I regain a wound once the attack's been resolved. So 12 mortal wounds went through. Theoretically, I should roll 2 6s and save 2 and then regain 2 wounds to take 8 wounds. Obviously, I didn't make any. So the first, just getting hit with 12 mortal wounds off of that was hilarious because it was double 6 and double 6 and then 6s immortals.
Oh my god.
Well, no, it was actually.
Did you check his dice?
He was using the Bad Moon Cafe dice for winning his pod last season, and they're notoriously.
We'll leave a link for them as well, guys.
Yeah, they're a bit much, But so I was sort of on the back foot from them because he then killed the Lord of Change, which exposed some of my characters, and I ended up. It went up to the end of turn 5, and I lost, I think, by about 10 points. But it was a really fun game. Tyranids aren't as bad as people think, and that's because they can be built in such a way that deny secondaries.
Yeah,
I think that's the lovely thing about Ninth, isn't it? Is that like there's so like lots of things aren't just haven't been tried. There's lots of like so for example, people just completely Nids being a prime example, just kind of shut down Horde straight off the back, and then Orcs have done incredibly well, and Nids have done quite well in some situations too. So it is interesting. And Ninth, the gaps that you see are not that big. So it's like they say like, oh, this is the low tier army or whatever on Goonhammer, but like actually you can still win.
Yeah, to be fair, they definitely need some love because it's one of the few ways you can play them. I mean, Lictor's coming in for deploy Scramblers and Linebreaker. The Tyranid Warriors to try and be an anvil in the middle of the board.
It's a bit sad that a lot of the time people run them as a shooting army. That's
it was a shooting
But
army. It was
shooting's
High
really
and
good.
Extreme that did it, and Psychic as well.
Yeah.
But it was a fun game, though. Again, it was because it was complete undivided. I had some Fiends for Slanesh. I had my Bloodletters in for Khorne. I had my Nurglings in and a Poxbringer and some Plague Bearers for Nurgle, and then I had Flamers and the Lord of Change for Tzeentch. So I represented every god at 1500.
If you go undivided, do you get a loci or anything?
No, you lose your locus. So I had my Khorne stuff in a patrol, but the rest of the stuff I had in a battalion. So you lose your equivalent of a chapter tactic.
Oh, I
if
see.
you mix gods.
That sucks.
That's really bad.
Really hurt me.
Well, fluff-wise, sorry for being a total novice, but would they get like would that work? Would they get some?
But that's the thing.
benefit?
Like, if it happened, this is the thing. It wouldn't.
The world
happen.
would end.
But if it happened, it is such a big deal
Yeah.
that you've got these demons working together.
Yeah.
Like,
Or does that just simply represent the fact that they would be like undivided demons, like just in the warp, not attached to a specific god?
So I can get deep into the lore in this.
Please do.
And so undivided demons is something they've explicitly, writers have said they've tried to move away from. Aaron Dempsey Bowden has been quite vocal about that. The only example of an undivided demon you have is Bellicor. And now people will say, well, Lorgar and Perturabo are undivided demons. And games.
do you want me to say that so you can?
Yeah, go on.
Actually, no. I'm Perturabo and Lorgar undivided.
Well,
demons.
it's funny you mentioned that. So the idea is that the reason why they've tried to say only Bellicor has the true backing of all the gods, and even then it's more they will hate him, is so they can give Abaddon a special place because all the gods are vying for Abaddon's attention, which is why they tried to make being a true undivided force or an undivided prince, for example, so rare. And again, such a major integral part of Chaos is the great game. They fight each other more than anyone else. So I think it makes sense they lose the locus. Loci. It was really bad for me. Having advance on charge on the Fiends would have massively helped. And even things, the Tzeentch locus, for example, you roll 2d6 at the start of the fight phase, remove the higher dice, and that lower dice, that any unmodified rolls of that dice can't hit any Tzeentch models.
That's awesome.
Which is great. So let's say I rolled a 6 and a 3. I take away the 6. 3s can't hit my Tzeentch models in the fight phase.
Oh my!
Which is hilarious. Especially
when you said that at first, I was like, "Wait, what does that mean?" But oh my!
Yeah, it's
God.
so funny. And he had a reaction squad of Gene Stealers that were hiding behind a ruin and then popped out to push back threats. And yeah, it's super fun, and it wasn't a super competitive list, but I'm slowly introducing things like Fiends and Beasts of Nurgle. I didn't have any in this list, but when I do want to push into taking Demons to tournaments, which I might, it was sort of just testing out a couple of elements for that.
Demons are doing well right now in
Yeah.
the meta, as it is, aren't they?
Two top 4 finishes. Two wins, and I think 3 or 4 top 4 finishes.
Yeah,
got
I
a
think
weird play
is
style.
it Slanesh in particular?
Yeah,
Mm.
so that's one of the lists is Slanesh. One of the lists was pure Slanesh. Another was a mix of Slanesh and Nurgle for the winning lists.
Slanesh scary, man.
Yeah, the triple keeper of Secrets is hilarious.
That's a tough.
I think
And
you mean
what's their-
horrendous.
What's their like special ability? That is that the ones
Well,
who interrupt the fighting?
So they always fight first. They have a rule called
Yeah.
Quicksilver Swiftness, which
That made me
all
cry.
Slanesh has.
It's a bit much. I think it is cool. I as another thing I will be salty about whilst on this podcast. I have another thing where I don't like. I love the idea of certain factions being better against other things. So as a prime example, Imperial Fists and Iron Warriors I think can both reroll hits and wounds in the combat phase with the stratagem. Fucking awesome. So game for that. And, likewise, if it was just...
Everyone has it against Black Legion.
Black Legion get the shit end of the stick, let's be honest here.
Yeah, sorry
but
about
so
that.
the best example probably Vengeance Vicadia. Vengeance Vicadia, fucking stupid, right? But
Nonsense.
But the thing is, you don't have to do things. You don't have to literally name the faction for this to take effect. So, for example, with Slanesh always fighting first, what that means is when they go against Blood Angels, or when they go against like any kind of combat-specific army, it's gonna tip the scale so much. I'm not saying they shouldn't be a bit better. A bit better is fine, but it's just so much.
And that's another example of an army that an Alaris bomb would really struggle against if they went second, or even if they went first, because your Seekers are moving over 20 inches. You're not getting anywhere
it's
exciting.
terrible. Like the big losses I've had in 9th edition so far have actually been against Slanesh demons with an Alpha Legion detachment as well, and that was from Simon Lewis.
Was it Alpha Legion Obliterators or
Obliterators?
Yeah.
And
I've lost
just
against him as
conceal
well.
them?
oh, he's such a good player.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah,
we need to start
but-
calling someone a bad player. To the viewers.
Who's a terrible player we can name on the podcast now? Matt Hunter, I'm looking at you.
But
Anyone from DCTV that you know? We've not mentioned that you know all these people for a
well,
while.
if you're gonna say it, then I don't even have to. But and the other big loss I had was against Tyranids,
Yeah.
and it was the psychic bomb just annihilated.
Oh yeah, that's again a
You
great
lost
way.
against Nids.
yeah,
See, like, this
yeah.
is the thing. So I going back to Custodes, sorry, I would give Custodes honestly just a 4-up mortal wound bomb, because every single mortal wound through on you is worth like twice the number of points that it's worth
so
on everything
sad.
else.
So
it's
bad.
like a 4-up mortal wound. Sorry, a 4-up mortal wound deny sounds like a lot, but it's like actually
It hurts.
Custodes will take the same amount.
So I remember I was at Warhammer World at the second team tournament of the year last year, because they're not running tournaments there currently. And I think in round 4, I was 4-0 submarining super hard because the rest of my team were losing. And then for the 5-0, I played this lovely dude who had, who's Doug Fazani, who's been on Warhammer TV, great non-metallic metal Custodes,
Oh, nice.
beautifully painted. And this is right when the Cult of Magic had came out. With the multiple splashing mortal wounds. So I kind of I pulled up before the game started. Like, look, I crank out on about 20 mortal wounds.
Oh, no.
Especially on this board setup.
Wow.
Listeners, I don't
God.
think you can see the face of disgust I'm making right now.
Yeah. So I killed a squad of bikers, a squad of 2 squads of custodian guards. I think turn 1.
I wasn't
And
even
then I
part
put-
of this game, and I hate you.
Yeah, I put like
I
6
love it.
wounds on a Telemon as well. And then, and he had nothing. I had 100 cultists was the rest of the list, and a bad in keeping them fearless. So it wasn't the funnest list to play against.
just
But
can't
pour
win.
one out for Doug. if
Yeah.
listeners-
God bless you, dude. And he
This
was
is-
an absolute gent about it. And we went to Bugman's early. I think he had a soft drink, but I offered to buy him a real one. But anyway,
He was too wounded in his soul.
yeah. Well, I think I've got some big defeats coming up next. Well, I'm playing James Hussein on Friday because he's from Croydon as well. So we're playing a local game, which will be fun. Then I'm playing Boris Mitchev on Wednesday, and we're just both. He's practicing new Space Marines.
I've heard his crap. You'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll do terribly. It's always fun practicing with him. And then I'm playing Vincent Chan, who I'm not sure if you guys know. He came maybe 6th at Iron Halo. No,
Oh, wow.
7th, 8th. I can't remember.
Wait, does
Or
he
it must
play
have won.
Space Wolves?
I don't know what he's playing these days. Actually, I think he was playing a Flavor of Thousand Suns in 8th, but he didn't play much of 8th, to be honest.
I know who you're thinking of, Alex. It's not him.
Oh, okay.
So I'm playing him in the Bad Moon League. I'm yet to play a game.
Are you in the league?
Yeah. Pod 2.
Your pod's not done anything.
Yeah, our pod's had one game played last week.
Jesus.
You've got really good players in it. It's like Simon Pridis is in your pod.
Prid's in there.
That's a tough pod.
David Gaylord, me, Jack Millership, Vince. I think that's it. But yeah, it's a good players.
Wow. Just too good to play.
Well, yeah, but again, Nassim Foucain is in pod 1, which is a point of great bitterness for me and Jack, because Nassim is a mate of ours, and we all were in the pod together originally.
Isn't he winning?
Season. Oh yeah, he is.
He's he's smashing the challenge as well, isn't he?
Yeah. No, Nassim's a great player and a good mate.
Do you know what list he's running?
He's running Blood Angels Imperial Guard.
Oh, it makes you feel bad. But he's got shooting in it, where mine's just all like
But no, Nassim's a really, really good player. I mean, he's got a 0% win ratio against me, but these things happen. No, I'm kidding.
And now that you've got that point out, I guess you can go home.
Yeah.
That was
I'm actually not in the second half of this, so peace out, guys.
All right, guys, we're going to go for a quick break, and we'll see you in a bit. And we're back. Okay, thank you for returning, listeners. So we're going to go on to the main part of the show today. We're going to talk about the origins of all of us. It is something that we share with superheroes, is that we have incredibly complex and fascinating origin stories. BDR, we obviously discovered the origin of your name, but what about you as a person?
As a person, well, so my mum and dad met. So my origins of the hobby. So I'm the newest of the hobby here. I started a year ago, so I think that's probably quite rare, because a lot of people I've spoken to start as a kid and kind of refine their love for the hobby as they get into adult life, when they have money to actually buy the models. But my kind of entry to it came with so over the last couple of years I developed like a couple chronic illnesses, and then my doctor suggested that I kind of get into painting as a way to stress, because to de-stress, because a way
or a way can be,
yeah. So painting that one model that gets me really going. But with chronic illnesses, a big factor is when you get stressed, it makes everything worse, as a Quipster will know. Well, we'll get to your story later.
Yes, I will.
I was kind of aware of Warhammer as a kid through Dawn of War, but never really kind of looked into it much more than just playing the game. And then randomly I saw an advert on YouTube about just the models. Games Workshop came up, and I was like, well, I'm not going to paint an abstract picture or something, so I'll just buy one of the models, give it a go, and I'll just paint it and then use it as a decoration for my gaming PC, because I've always been into like video games, gaming, and playing at a competitive standard sometimes, or at least competitive games. And then I kind of just fell into it, just buy more and more models, started watching Luton's videos on the lore, so I thought, I've got these models, might as well learn a little bit about it.
Luton 09.
Yeah, it's really good. Good videos. And then
that's super interesting, because you're one of the few people I know in the hobby that didn't get into it from playing it as a kid. Like I think you're the only person I can think of off the top of my head. Everyone else played it as a kid.
I kind of just got these models for eventually I just need to learn to play. So then I went to my Games Workshop manager, started playing some games, and then when I play a game or a video game, I like to be good at it, and I get a bit of a competitive.
I was going to say, talking about computer games, do you want to tell everyone like at what level you were playing at?
So most recently I've been playing a lot of Teamfight Tactics,
TFT.
which is TFT as a League of Legends game, and I'm probably playing at like a diamond standard, and I've not really played it that long, and I got there quite quickly. Some of my friends will be laughing at me, because when I play them, I have had to make alternate accounts so I can play at their level.
Smurfing.
Yeah, because otherwise it wouldn't be fair. I was playing too high, and then they'd be in lobbies too high standard, and they wouldn't be able to do anything.
So you were too good to play with your friends,
basically. Yeah. But on like a really like serious, so there's a thing called game battles back in the day when I was a youngster, but because this is before competitive gaming is like a real thing like it is now. I finished third in Europe or fourth in Europe for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and my Gears of War team finished, I think it's fourth or sixth in Europe. I can't remember now exactly, in Gears of War 2.
And what was your Pokemon team that took you to third?
Oh God. There was a Zapdos in there.
Nice.
I used to run a Blissey and a Gliscor, an Azelf. I want to say Starmie, but it was basically I had like 2 tanks and then a couple guys who could do some utility stuff, and then everybody else would just kind of do damage.
I mean, I think I speak for everyone here when I say, what the fuck is a Gliscor?
Gliscor. It's like a big
Gliscor.
like
Siders with a steel rod, right? Yes, I knew that. I'm really proud of myself.
It's like a bat thing.
Pokemon
Anyway,
Go really did a lot for me. I'm not gonna lie.
so yeah, going back to getting into the hobby, I learned to play. Started watching some back reps on YouTube. Found Winters, and then through Winters.
Alex, sorry, Winters is a.
Winters? Yeah.
Well, how do you describe a Winters?
I describe him as Alex's spiritual liege.
Yeah. Alex dreams of him.
That was only one time, guys. God.
That's why I bought the flat cap. Yeah, so found Winters, and then I found Deployment Zone DCTV, which then I met Alex on Discord because we went to. I was going to a tournament after my third ever game, and messaged on the Discord saying, "Go to this tournament, and I'm going to be there." Alex then messaged saying, "Yeah, I'll be there. Say hello."
What tournament was it? Out of interest.
Fun and fluff.
What is this fun and fluff of which you speak?
I think I'll let Karim go through it in probably better detail. You.
Well, it's not actually run by the London Wargaming Guild. It's run by the Wargaming Guild, which is
That's a different thing.
It is. It's because.
Are you calling us out for saying it was?
I didn't know that.
No, that one was an LWG one, but they've recently split off because one is a not-for-profit. As in terms of our company's house register. The LWG, it means we can run it as a not-for-profit, and we attempt to push to break even for the club nights, but it means that the tournament itself can be run profitably.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's cool.
Not that it's been run profitably, but if
Is that why Peter's got that Lamborghini now? Is that?
I know. Peter's got the matte black Lambo. It was future plans of big and grand things that, who knows, maybe they'll still materialise, maybe they won't, but
Okay,
we'll see.
But yeah, so through that I met Alex, and then I've kind of just came into meeting you guys and Battlefield Bermondsey and Badminton Cafe, and it's kind of spiraled out of control since there.
So why did you go for the faction that you started with, which is Ultramarines, right?
Ultramarines I started off with because when I walked into the shop, that was everywhere, and it was kind of the easiest way, because you can buy those not the starter box, but you can buy the starter pack which had one model and the paints, right?
Yeah.
And that was what I just kind of followed to paint, and then I painted one of those and it came out all right. Well, I say all right. I've learned a lot.
Did you buy
since
Dark
then.
Imperium?
No, I didn't. I
didn't
just
buy
kind
that?
of built up a collection naturally. So then I was like, I want a Dreadnought now. And the Dreadnought actually would probably, I attempted edge highlighting and actually looked okay. And compared to the other stuff, I was like, I don't know how I've come out with that. And then all my other models look absolutely like someone stepped on
It's
them.
often easier on bigger models.
Yeah,
when you
the vehicle
start,
was so
yeah.
much easier. And then I just kind of bought more and more. And then I was like, it was like, I don't know, my dad, I think it's Christmas, my dad bought me a Repulse Executioner because I want a big tank.
Dad?
Yeah.
So
25 at the time or 26 at the time, buy me a Repulse Executioner.
So what eventually turned you away from the Avenging Sun and towards the Sons of Jesus, Sanguinian?
Well, so interesting. So Ultramarines are very point and click. Don't have to use my brain to play. And I like to, when I play video games, I like to be in the proactive, not reactive kind of side. So in the gameplay sense, it was the more than being an assault-based army, making my opponent make decisions, and that's where I played Pokemon back in the day. I used to make my guy make decisions, my opponent make decisions. And I find when I play video games, if I'm getting the person to play at my speed of playing, I'll generally win because I like to play quickly. That's just something, if you want to beat me, take your time when you're playing it against me. But anyway, so... and then
I'll remember that.
Yeah. And then Fluff White, what really made me fall in love with Blood Angels was a couple books I read. So Devastation of Baal, awesome book. And then I read the Dante book, which then I was like, I'm guessing I'm doing Blood Angels. So then I made a custom chapter.
You can't not like Dante.
He
He's
is
just
amazing. I need to do a conversion of him as a
Primaris?
yeah. I think he's going to go, well, hopefully he goes that way, but that's a different conversation for a different day.
No, they have to give him something. There's no one to replace him, really, is there?
No.
So it's like, it's
Can't
not
make
like...
Mephisto in it.
It's not
too,
like,
Chaos
Space Wars
Sicarius,
where Black Men could step up.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got Kato Sicarius.
Yeah, so but there's no one.
But there
There's-
isn't, no, the
He's
Blood
the
Angels.
regent of the Imperium Nihilus.
In those books, you very
Brother
much...
Corbulo.
But in the book wise, it's really like they talk a lot about Dante and a lot about Mephisto, who also Mephisto's just a badass.
They are. A lot of the Space Marine characters can be a bit bland because they're just powerful Space Marines. But yeah, those two characters, you got lucky there.
He's so powerful, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know if this spoilers people. In one of the books, he was slowing down time and split himself into different versions of himself, and was doing like stuff all over the place. And I was like, This is Dragon Ball Z.
See, the first time I read anything Blood Angels in 40k at least was Blood of Baal, because everyone's like, you have to read it, and you have to read
Devastation of Baal?
it. Devastation of Baal, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Very good.
Such a good novel.
And then and I was reading it, and the Mephiston stuff, I was like, I'd heard a lot about Mephiston, people bigging him up, and I was like, this guy's quite good. I mean, he talks to, he does the shit with Carbander, and you're like, okay, he's quite powerful. And then, spoiler, he jumps out the back of a Thunderhawk and then wipes out like 10,000 Tyranids, and you're like, oh, Lord of Death! This is where that comes from.
An ironic name.
He sprouts like crimson wings, which I want to see someone to do that kind of conversion on him. Just big wings. Like, I want to repaint him and have, because his sword goes on fire when he like turns on to like cool mode. So I want to repaint mine as like a flaming sword, and maybe I'll buy some wings and paint them red.
So he's like God mode engaged Mephiston.
Yeah, because to be honest, I've actually never used him I've used him once in a game.
Stunning model as well.
Yeah,
that model is hench.
I've
He's
played
massive.
against him once, against Sanger from Tabletop Tactics, and
Hashtag name drop.
Yeah, so I was like, don't charge us. I was like,
Don't
charge
Every
Alex.
time from now on, Rich, we have to say that.
But I warned him against charging Mephiston in first when he had a squad of Blood Angels nearby, and it's like, no, I'll be fine. Charges as Chaos Space Marine squad with a las cannon in it. I overwatched and one-shot Mephiston in Overwatch. It was hilarious. Well, for me.
But that's the thing, like Mephiston at the moment, because he doesn't have an invulnerable save, like every single time I've gone up against Mephiston with Blood Angels players, I just murder him immediately.
Yeah, he's a proper glass cannon. So
Yeah.
it's got a feel no pain, but doesn't really come up. But his sword is like time 2 strength.
Yeah.
And he's strength 5, I think. Cause
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah, and he's and +1 to wound. Being a Blood Angel is savage.
Yeah, I think he's just a bit expensive, because I think glass cannon
170
is probably true,
old.
but I think because really what he should be is just a very good librarian, but you should still be able to just play him like a normal librarian.
Yeah, because he gets
Yeah.
2 denies, which is just 1 more denied because he's chief librarian, so 1 more denied than a normal one gets, but does the 2 spells he casts. And other than that, it doesn't really have any special abilities I can think of, other than having a feel no pain.
So another spoiler, you won't know this, but at the end of the Horus Heresy, something quite big happens to Sanguinius. Now, so how have you read much of Sanguinius
beautiful
in the Heresy?
boy.
So I've skimmed some bits of it. So I don't know if I want to spoil it for you, but Saturnine, I've read a bit about what Sanguinius does, and I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. Should I say it?
He does well. He does well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all read Saturnine here, right?
Yeah.
Well, anybody who hasn't, pause for
Skip ahead
15
15
seconds.
We'll put a timestamp
Yeah.
or something.
To be fair, earlier you were like, skip ahead 30 seconds if you were
Yeah, and then I, like, 3 minutes
If they
later.
did that would have totally ruined
Oh, we've just
it.
ruined it 50 seconds. So 15 seconds again. He kills a Warlord Titan, and then it's mad. And then the other Titans like look at him. They just like he kind of does the pose where he just like come at me, bro. And they're like, no, bro, I'll see you later, bro. I'm running away, bro.
He kills a Warlord Titan and then gets very sad for the rest of the book. And I think it's because I remember saying this to you, Quipster. Like, I had just read Maelstrom before I read that, and that has a lot of sad Sanguinius in it. And at this point, I'm just like, can I just see Sanguinius just killing Warlord Titans? I'm not really interested in the sad shit now. Let's just have badass Sanguinius. I just want him to fly around
Well, him
Mount
being
Everest.
sad kind of inspired the name for my custom chapter, which is the Forlorn Angels.
That's
Alright.
pretty
Cool,
good.
man.
I
Thanks,
really
guys.
like that.
Yeah.
I'm a fluffy player. So fluffy that I'm going to strip all my Ultramarines so I can make them all custom chapters so I can play whatever I want. But no, no one needs to know that bit.
Except everyone who just listened to this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. I mean, like, one thing I'm intrigued to know, sort of like going back to chronic illness stuff, has Warhammer actually helped?
Yes, for sure. So when I first started, I was in a period where I was off work for about 6 months. So I got really, really ill, and to the point where my actual work told me to stop coming to work, because I'm one of those people who just sucks up and just goes in. But I lost like 15% of my body weight, and that's not a lot of me to begin with.
Jeez.
And yeah, I was properly ill. And then I was, having so many tests with doctors, procedures all the time, and they're like, we don't know what's wrong. It's always lovely to hear from a medical professional.
I've been there.
And actually at the moment, I feel like I've been put into a box, not really been like told what's kind of like the issue. It's like, this is what we think is wrong, and then I'm just learning to deal with it and manage it, which is, has its ups and downs with any chronic illness. But when I found the hobby and started painting and having something to kind of take my mind off it, and if I'm not feeling great, I can focus on, I eventually, after like a month of doing it and having that kind of drive to do something again, I went back to work, and then I've had a good spell. a relatively good spell for the last how long? A year or so since I've been back. So it helps because it's when you're painting, you're in the zone, right? You just everything else is out, and then you look at that one bit, you keep messing up like on Alex's model we mentioned earlier, and you keep strategizing to build it up again. But no, it's definitely helped. But good days, bad days.
No, that is that there is a lot of incredibly wholesome parts to this hobby, and that is definitely one of the things.
I'm an inspiration, guys. What can I say?
I mean,
no, genuinely, you are.
So segue from people's bodies that are just not very good. Alex,
there is a bit of banter about how much time me and Alex spend on the loo.
Oh my god! So if we're gonna move on to my entry into the hobby. So we'll go back to back in the day. I've got the classic example of I started playing the hobby as a kid, and I remember specifically how I got into the hobby because this was before Dawn of War. This was before the computer games. It's actually a Games Workshop in Watford, where I'm from, and I remember it's in the shopping centre, and I'd always go past it, and I'd be like, "What the fuck is that?" Because you see all the models in the front, and you're like, "That looks fucking awesome," but what is that? And eventually, you sort of pluck up the courage to go in, and it was actually I was visiting my grandparents, I think, in Leicester, and I walked past one. I was just like, "Okay, I've got to know what this is." So I walked in, and I spoke to the guy, and I remember walking in specifically and looking around, and it's like you get that moment of awe. It's like the deer in the headlights, and you're just like, "This is amazing." And I remember specifically there was because every Games Workshop has that like diorama. The one in Tottenham Court Road has the diorama with the Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah.
Well, this one had a diorama, and it was a dam, and it was like this really tall dam. And on the top of the dam were a whole bunch of Imperial fists, and climbing up the dam were. Do you remember the old Hormigant models, the metal ones that actually just looked like Alien, but with like scything talons?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that?
I didn't.
Before my time,
they all kind of look the same in my head. So.
Yeah. Bloody racist against Tyranids.
And they've got more like of a face.
Yeah. They look like a xenomorph with like more of a face. And so at the top of this dam, you've got these Imperial fists firing down the face of the dam at these Tyranids, which are like climbing up the dam. They're like putting the talons into the side of the dam and climbing up. And I was looking at this like, this is the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. And so they gave me the magazine with all the different chapters in it. And Karim's just showing the guys.
That is proper like from the movie.
Yeah, literally, it's like such a rip-off.
Just with the face at the front,
Yeah, literally, it really is. So
surely that would be copyrighted.
Hence the change.
Oh, explains a lot.
Exactly, but I remember like seeing they had this little booklet they'd give you. It was sort of like an introduction booklet, and it had all of the different successor chapters in it. And I'm looking at like, this is magic. This is amazing. Bought a couple of models. Started painting Ultramarines at first, very badly.
And you just finished them last week.
Genuinely, I
were you a slow painter then?
Oh yeah, totally. But I had my whole like routine at the time. Like I'd get home on a Friday night. My parents at that point had moved to India, so it was just me and my aunt in the house, and she'd go off on like dates or clubbing or whatever. So it'd just be me on a Friday by myself, and the routine was an hour or two of Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid 2.
Oh, awesome game.
Oh, what a game. Then the rest of the evening, I'd just be painting while listening to the XFM heavy metal show. And it was like the best time ever.
God.
That sounds pretty sick, to be fair. I have worse evenings now, man.
Exactly. So like, I loved it. And so like, it was this relaxing thing that I would do like as a 12-year-old at this point. And because I at this point, it's 3rd edition. And so it got to the point where I was playing in the St. Albans shop quite regularly because my parents would drop me off on a Sunday. And, obviously you buy more and more. Started with Space Marines first, they're Ultramarines. Then I was just like, I want to do a custom thing. So they became green. So they
best
were...
Best colour.
It was actually Dark Angels green. But they were like not dark.
I knew I liked you. I liked you.
Wait, let me So you started off with... good guys, quote unquote, and then you went chaos.
Well,
Oh.
no. So basically, it
Took me a
was
second.
yeah. So they weren't actually Dark Angels; they were just green.
Oh, okay.
I remember having a name for them, but I've totally forgotten because it was like at the beginning of the Bush administration. But that's how I delineate
The Bush Marines.
yeah, this is how I delineate periods of time. Like, which American president was in power at the time?
Now we have the Brazil wax.
But,
or the orange one.
yeah. So then I actually moved on to Tau. Because I had the Space Marines, then I had
I liked you.
well,
It's been a bit fishy.
I had a whole bunch of Imperial Guard because someone bought me some for my birthday, and I was just like, well, I guess I do Imperial Guard now. As a kid, because you're just like, fuck it. So I had all of that, and then I made one of the biggest mistakes of my hobby life. I'm fairly minimal in like a lot of the things I do. I try to be as minimal as possible. So I actually ended up giving away all of my Space Marines, bar like 3, to just some rando in the St. Albans Games Workshop. Just because I was like, I'm not going to play Marines anymore. I'm a Tau guy. So I fucking gave all of them away. Ugh, it was such a shit mistake. And so, yeah, I was just like, I'm monofaction Tau. That's my thing. And because I really like the
For the
lore.
greater good, I rate that, man.
Yeah, like the lore really appealed to me. Because deep down, I'm just a massive communist. But yeah,
I thought you were going to go down.
You
Deep
will-
down,
yeah.
I love Gundam Wing.
Yeah,
Genuinely
people
though?
will notice that we become steadily more communist as this podcast.
But actually, talking
We
about
started off with farming.
but talking about the whole Gundam thing, like genuinely one of my favorite animes ever is Gundam Wing. Like I love it. So yeah, I mean my Tau army. I actually wrote a list of things to do before I die, and one of them was have a fully painted Warhammer army, which I never completed with Tau. But yeah, the theme for them was always Star Wars themed. So their fluff was they were special ops Tau. So they didn't have any allies, didn't take crew, specifically because they were sent in to do all the deniable like spec ops things that the Ethereals didn't want anyone else to know about. So they had like test bed armor and all this kind of stuff. And so like, you know how Tau only have one shoulder pad on one side?
Yeah.
My guys had both.
Damn.
Because they got the experimental shit.
The experiment, Tau was sitting there going, how can we
So
improve this armor?
that's a 2-up in one, is it? Is that-
Oh yeah,
Two
absolutely.
shoulder pads.
Yeah. And then also like each one had so you can take the carbine and the long rifle. What's it called?
Pulse rifle.
Pulse rifle.
Pulse
Yeah.
rifle. Oh.
So the ones that had the pulse
worries.
rifle had a carbine on the back, on their backpack, and the ones that had a carbine had the rifle on the
They're
back.
packing.
So they were packing some heat.
WYSIWYG.
And so like the whole army was Star Wars themed. So
Did you have a Jedi?
I remember that in Star Wars.
yeah. So basically, all of the color scheme was all the fire warriors had bright white armor with black under armor, but I've clear varnished all of the armor panels, so it was that plasticky stormtrooper look.
Did you have a lightsaber?
See,
Ethereal.
Did they have a minus
Genuinely.
physical modifier?
oh no! But genuinely, like the whole ethereal with the lightsaber,
Bonding knife, lightsaber.
I should have done that, and it just did not occur to me because I was a
Yeah.
stupid 13-year-old.
Yeah. Maybe it wouldn't have worked. It would have just cauterized the wound as you go.
It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, so I had this army, and that came up to about 1,500 points. And then I actually moved to boarding school when I was about 13, and
I knew I didn't like you.
It explains a lot.
oh yeah, and when I was at boarding school, I left all my models at home because boarding school is not kind to you if you are a nerd. At least it wasn't in 2003. So yeah, I didn't really touch it. And then while I was at boarding school, I actually came down with a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis. We're going to go into some pretty deep territory.
I didn't name mine, but to be honest, I'll be here for 20 minutes naming them, so they're that long.
Well, we can have a sick off in a second. But yeah, so for those of you out there who don't know, I have a condition called ulcerative colitis. It's where your large intestine isn't recognized as part of your body, so your immune system attacks it. It's a little bit like Crohn's. So Crohn's is where it's your immune system doesn't recognize your digestive system from your like neck down. And so, yeah, I had a really bad attack of this when I was about 13 or 14 and had to have my large intestine removed, which is why I've got a very slim waist. That, narrow Asian hips. I get it from my mum's side. But so that was something I was always dealing with throughout like all my teenage years. And because of that, I actually missed half my GCSEs. And I had to repeat lower sixth. And I actually dropped out of boarding school to do that. And I came back to Watford. Now, coming back to Watford means that I have suddenly access to Games Workshop. And it was a funny thing. I moved from like a boarding school to a state school, and I'd never been to a state school before. And I was thinking like, am I going to get stabbed?
I'm thinking Will from The In-Betweeners here right now.
Literally, genuinely.
Please don't shank me.
Genuinely, like
I mean, stab. Yeah.
my thoughts were like, oh my god, am I going to be stabbed for my accent? Am I going to get beaten up? Like, what's going to happen? Is this going to be a Will from
I've
The
moved from my
In-Betweeners
boarding
situation?
and frankly,
Watford isn't rough,
better
by the
school.
way.
But like, it was such a funny thing because like, I moved to this school. It was St Michael's in Watford. And
Definitely not a rough school.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out,
I
because
know it.
it's such a funny thing because I went into sixth form there and they took us all for this outward bound sort of bonding trip thing.
Did you get on with the poor people? Or?
Well, it's funny you should say this. So we were coming back from this outward bound sort of like bonding trip thing, and my now good friend Dom was leaning over the seats on the bus and just talking to a whole bunch of people. I was there, and he made a Warhammer joke, and obviously I understood it, so I
got beaten up.
straight away. Like he made this Warhammer
Alex
joke.
actually beat him up.
Gotta
fit
in. But yeah, so Dom made this Warhammer joke, and obviously I laughed along, and then Dom just looked at me and he was just like, "You don't get what we're laughing at." I was like,
Was
yeah.
it a Dark Angels joke? Was it?
I think it was an Eldar joke.
Oh, okay.
And so he
Wait,
looked
Eldars have joke?
yeah, Arslanesh. But so I laughed along, and he was like, "Oh, you don't know what we're talking about." I was like, "Yes, I do." He was like, No, you don't." I was like, "Yeah, I do." And then he was like, looking at the rest of the guys, like, "By Arslanesh, he's one of us." And so
Nerdiest thing I've ever heard.
Oh,
in my
and
life.
then genuinely, it was just like instant group of friends, and like they all played Warhammer, and I was just like, well, it's a good thing I kept my towel then, isn't it? And so like,
And they're like, oh.
That one.
It's funny you say that. I remember because I moved back to London, and I'd never lived in London before, and I'd played Warhammer, and I remember like my family were like, and like my girlfriend was like, "How have you got so many friends that you talk to so much and are so close with so quickly?" And it's like, I said to her, I was like, "Have you ever gone to a party and there's someone that mentions Harry Potter or Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings or something you are fascinated with? It's like you walk into a room and everybody is like that.
Yeah.
So you just become so close with people so quickly.
Yeah.
Even if I hadn't met Rich before, I'd be like Sanguinius, and he'd be like, "Yeah,
That
Sanguinius, yeah."
yeah.
Big smile across my face. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Sanguinius. I daydream about him.
Yeah, it was exactly the same as me and the St. Michael guys. And so like Dom, for example, I've been to his wedding. He's still a good friend of mine 10 years later.
Do they still play?
Yeah, actually. So we'll get to this in a second. But basically, while we were at school, we were all in sixth form. We're playing, we're hobbying. It was a really fun time. It was 5th edition at the time. So this is back in 2008. And then obviously we all sort of fell out of the hobby a little bit just because we all went to uni. And I think it was the end of 2018. Because like, I think Sandman, we talked about this before on the 40k Today podcast. # name drop. But so it's one of those things that like you do become a bit of a sleeper agent because you kind of don't ever fall out.
Agent.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's true, but you don't ever really fall out of the hobby because even while I was at uni, I'm still reading the Horus Heresy.
Well, it's funny really because I remember speaking to, I don't think it was Josh, but it was someone that used to work for Games Workshop, and they said that like it's actually part of their thing though. It's like they need to get adults to buy stuff, but they need to wow the kids. They need to do it because it will pay off in 10 years' time. So
Yeah,
it's
nice long-term investment.
Yeah, it is.
It's true, and it works obviously.
And like, so
Great ROI.
you know, there's like 10 years with Games Workshop, like did really poor. Part of the reason for that might be because if you'd gone back 10 years previously, maybe that wasn't part of their business model. Maybe they weren't doing that enough. And
I
then
think they also got
everybody
lucky.
came back into
Sounds
it.
really weird to say. They got lucky with COVID.
To a degree, but I think
they
that's
were doing pretty well before. as well.
Yeah, but they're probably one of the few businesses out there that have
giving back their furlough money. Yeah, absolutely.
done well.
But yeah, I mean, like, sort of going back to the journey, like, my coming back into the hobby sort of coincided with, like, sort of a quarter of the way through 8th. And
Who was president at the time?
that was still the Trump presidency, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good to know, good to know.
unfortunately. But so basically what happened was I've suffered with chronic illness problems for like the last 15 years or so. And there are times, and Rez will know this.
Only 2 years for me.
But there are times when like you will be so ill that you can't do anything. Like Reza, do you want to explain to people like what the fatigue is like?
Yeah, I say to people like, because there's parts where people go, you don't look ill, but it's like
God,
there are
that.
days when getting out of bed is an achievement. And it just this is, you can't describe. So my illness is post laparoscopic.
Tell that to the lion. Best Archangel's joke
Banter.
ever.
Did you have to get that explained?
No, I guess I didn't actually hear what Ed said. I just heard it sort of triumphantly put his hands up the second out of the punchline, and then I worked back through what could the joke have been. I'm like, I know what the joke was.
It's
That's actually even impressive that you got that.
Well, I know he's a massive DA fanboy. Well,
But yeah, to describe, so my illness
good
is
thing,
called post-laparoscopic cholecystectomy syndrome. So that's what I've got, like a couple other ones, but they're boring. So this is I live with the symptoms of gallstones without having gallstones, which is just a really long experience. So basically, I get really searing pain in my stomach. I get fatigue, nausea, all the fun stuff.
that doesn't sound fun at all.
No, it's not fun. And yeah, it's just like there are days where I kind of just want to be left alone in my room and just be left alone. Because
Exactly.
I'm in agony, but then there are the ups and downs of it. But yeah, so, and basically to answer your question, there are days where, getting out of bed is.
You're a fucking mess, mate.
Well, I feel like I really round of applause for getting out of bed or something.
I mean, to be honest, it's exactly the same as me. Like sometimes you'll just be hit with this fatigue, and the way I generally explain this fatigue is, imagine you've had the hardest workout session of your entire life, and the adrenaline wears off, and you sit down on the couch at home and you can't move. Now imagine that 100% of the time, and that eating and sleeping didn't work to get you out of it. That's what I figure fatigue is. It's really fucking hard.
You don't have like any appetite. You just feel weak, and
Yeah.
then like you have the mental state with it as well. You're like, oh,
Exactly.
not again.
Yeah, precisely. And so I think as well, and this is something I think we'll talk about with all of us, the mental health aspect of chronic illness it hits you hard. And so that's one thing that the hobby has been amazing for me for personally. So like if I look at when I was getting back into the hobby about 2 years ago, I throughout the whole like uni experience and everything, I was keeping up to date. Like I'm reading the Horus Heresy. I'm watching 40k lore videos. For a little bit actually in 2017, my cousin was living with me, Taryn, who's in Battlefield Bermondsey. I'm kind of amazed that we didn't drop into the tabletop game at the time, because like we would debate like Dark Angel's lore every night while he was living with me, because we both loved it. But it got to the point where I was, over a period of about 2.5 years, I was so consistently ill that I was just like, this is fucking lame. I need something that's not computer games, because I've been playing computer games and it's been my only outlet. Then randomly, I came across something on Facebook, and it was a Warhammer thing. I think it was like a new Space Marine release or something. And I was just like, holy shit. I used to love painting stuff, and I need something right now where I can just sit here for like 4 hours and be fatigued and yet be doing something. And I was just like, fuck it, yeah, I'll do some painting. So I walked into Games Workshop in Tottenham Court Road and just said to them, like, okay, what have you got? And I looked, and I was just like, holy shit, custodies are a thing now? Like, are you fucking
He
kidding
actually
me?
said when he walked in, sorry, you're too good looking to play, but he insisted. So.
I also want to know what they would say if you just went into Tottenham Court Road and said, so what have you got?
Well, this is my sword.
Warhammer? Where do you think you are?
We got plastic. More plastic.
But yeah, so like literally it was custodies that got me into the game again, because I was just like, holy shit, this is every one of my Warhammer dreams come true. Dropped Tau completely and just dropped £400 on custodies immediately. And then, yeah, just
That's
got back
one
into
model.
Yeah.
it. Yeah. And it was a funny thing, because basically I texted all my school friends and I was like, hey guys, I'm thinking about getting back into Warhammer. Who wants to join me? All of them. So that's how, Will got back in, my friend Lewis, like all the guys back then, they were all so up for it. And yeah, it was amazing. And through the Tottenham Court Road Warhammer guys, the Games Workshop guys, I was just like, oh, so where is there to play in London? And then they casually mentioned, oh, well, there's this thing called the London Wargaming Guild.
Nice.
And it was really interesting because, like, it's such a good feeder to get back into the hobby because, I didn't know anyone in London who played, and all my school friends, we had to, organize a month or two in advance because they were all, all over the country. And so, yeah, it's one of these weird things that I genuinely think I've made more friends in the last 2 years of playing Warhammer than I have in 3 years of living in London. Just because, London is a lonely place to be sometimes. Do you know what I mean? It's going back to what you said, Sam.
I left my violin at home.
Yeah.
It's true. I've made so many close friends because of this hobby. Just because, when you play a Warhammer game,
Give him a hug.
You should invite some on here sometime. It would be.
Well played, sir.
That's pretty savage, Sandman.
but it's true. Because if you play a Warhammer game, especially with the guild, the London Wargaming Guild will match you against someone that you probably don't know if you're new into the hobby. And so that's 3 hours with someone that you have a shared interest with. So that's like an instant friend.
Well, so I met you through the hobby, and then I've met Ed, Adam, that met you through it. Now, I knew literally no one who played Warhammer when I first started a year ago, and now I've God knows how many games.
I also
I've
just
played.
find it quite credit to the LWG because I don't think this is actually normal. It's so when I first came to London, kind of similar to you, Rich, when you went straight to Fun and Fluff. The first time I played in London was I think with the Winter Warfare a couple of years ago, and so I obviously didn't know anybody, but it's such a friendly, so ridiculously friendly an environment.
It's because as you nailed it on the head earlier. Yeah. When you said it's just about that shared experience, because we're all just massive nerds, and it's and there's just a delight in realizing that there are loads of other nerds who are also
right up to the point
geeky.
They saw I played Tau. People were so nice.
They're we'll allow it. Yeah.
The game very much encourages communication. So it's I find it so much harder. You couldn't play with someone. So that the example I gave of the last time we spoke was playing someone who there was a language barrier. That was really hard.
I'll tell you what, it's funny you say that because obviously we obviously see all the saltiness and stuff of the game, but it actually really does teach you how to be social, and it teaches you how to have discussions, right? Because you cannot play this game if you can't have a discussion with somebody and accept that you might be wrong about something, because there's always going to be things in the hobby that you think. You've
got to compromise.
Yeah, you'll be like, oh, that's isn't he tough as 5, and then whatever, or whatever it's going to be. There's going to be some disagreement, and so you have to learn how to compromise, and it's so interesting.
Sure, you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just flicking through my pages of my book. Why not?
On to the cool stuff then, Alex. So why Custodies? First of all, then you say they brought you back into the hobby. What is it about Custodies?
Man, if I'm entirely honest, reading through the Horus Heresy, Master of Mankind was a massive inspiration. I'm thinking to myself, these guys are amazing. There's a bit of a spoiler. It's not even much of a spoiler. There's a bit in Master of Mankind where one of the custodians has been fighting for 3 days straight against the hordes of chaos and all these demons, and the worst he's got to say is I've got a bit of a cramp in my arm right now. This is a bit...
I'm finally feeling the lactic burn.
Yeah, literally. After 3 days of constant combat, you're these are the ultimate badasses. I love this. And then looking at the models, I was just these models are stunning. Beautiful.
The way they stand there.
Yeah. No, it's actually interesting. So
bouncer to a nightclub. Such a hater.
But no, it's actually true. There's a specific reason why, especially the Custodies, have these very static poses, and it's the fact that in the Custodies lore, there's this whole big thing that they have actually a very conservative mindset. Everything they do is, we are guardians of the Emperor himself and the palace. Everything they do is naturally very defensive and static.
And the way they think as well is not just that they're not. Well, I'll say they're more philosophers first and then warriors second, or
I would say so as well. Yeah.
Yeah. What was you'll know the book name?
Oh, they're gamers first.
Watchers of the Throne.
Watchers of the Throne. Yeah, both those books, they were awesome.
Yeah.
And for Valerian.
Valerian,
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's funny. I always talk about Custodes using this analogy. So like you can't not love Custodes, and for me they're a lot like Rick and Morty. So I really wanted to hate Rick and Morty when it came out because
Rick burps a lot.
Lots of the people that like Rick and Morty are fucking annoying people.
Such assholes.
But then you watch it and you're just like, damn it, that is pretty funny. Like, fair play. And I want to take, and you know what, the thing with Custodes, I think the reason that I had a natural aversion is because I love Space Marines. And I was like, wait, so there's this faction that are just like Space Marines but better? What the fuck? Like, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Like, but then you read Custodes lore and you're like, fuck, they're cool. God damn it. Like, now I like Custodes. And
literally.
Yeah, and then,
So yeah.
You need to get sisters like segment to your army.
Yeah, that's actually
awesome.
part of the
Silence
plan.
or of Sororitas?
No, it's silence. Because in those books, they're
Talons.
like he has a girlfriend basically.
Yeah,
yeah.
She's great.
And she's awesome as well.
Oh, such a badass. But like, that's actually part of the plan. And this was, I look back on my early sort of hobbying experience, and I sort of lament some of the decisions that I made, because like, for example,
Starting a podcast.
well, there's that. But
Making friends with you guys.
oh, horrible mistake. What have I done?
You can't say that after what you just said like 2 minutes ago.
But like, just like little things, like I didn't know that resin bases existed when I first started, so I glued all of my Custodes to the plastic bases, and then I discovered resin bases and had to cut them all off and put them on the resin ones. So like very, very basic things like that.
Okay.
Just because like I really like spending a lot of time painting. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm actually quite a slow painter.
Don't think it's
I
ever
heard
been
people
mentioned.
just stop you in the street, mate, and they're just like, "You're that famous painter guy." Aren't you?
No, they stopped Alec.
And I
in the
really like
street.
your yellow.
By the way,
I
I
was
know
in a job
Winters.
interview, and she was just like, "Hey, like, how did you do?"
I also get that a lot, to be fair.
Yeah.
Don't
But
know.
actually, this is an interesting question. Like, so I think 1, 2, 3 of us are single guys in London. At what point do you mention that you play Warhammer? Like, if you're on a
Had this
date.
discussion
When
a
they're in the
couple of
bedroom and they
times
see the
recently.
models. No, I think it depends really. But yeah, no, I think I probably mentioned that I paint before.
Just say you've got to use your brother's room.
His was worse than mine. No, but I think when I mentioned I paint, I'm like, oh, what do you paint? And then
I
I'm
got a
like,
story about it. Tell off air. Sorry, go on.
off air.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you should say it on air, personally.
Radio
Just in
podcast.
case any fans are listening. Soz.
Wait, do you think your family listened to this Warhammer podcast?
I mean, it's highly unlikely. Actually, yeah, fine, go on. Oh, actually, should I tell it as part of my segment rather
Yes,
than stealing
yes.
yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, to answer your question, it's I mention I paint, and then what do you paint, and then I go from there.
I do the
And
exact same.
hope they're a little bit nerdy.
Yeah, they can normally tell from my t-shirt. So I think I got into Warhammer after I'd been with my girlfriend for like 4 years or something. So at that
She's
point,
already stuck with
Yeah,
you.
she'd
Yeah.
already given up. So I think I just worn it down. So I don't think it was a problem.
Now she buys you models.
Warhammer is like not even close to being the worst part about dating me. So I think
It's actually a win, all things considered. Yeah.
I think it's fine. If anything, it's less time she has to see me. So it's a win in her.
Well, it's okay. It's more time we get to see you, which
Yeah,
I'm happy about.
So I got to ask. So why Imperial Fist? Imperial Fists fascinate me when people choose them as an army. I think they're such an
Really?
interesting. Well, because they're not.
That means he hates them.
No, not at all.
yellow.
Because I love Imperial Fists, and I love like, to be honest, anything that isn't Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, because these are the poster boys so often. So when people
I
go for
rescind that
Imperial
comment.
Fists and they go for Salamanders and they go for Iron Hands, like obviously Iron Hands are they have
Maybe
a
like
bad
pre-2019.
reputation. But yeah, pre-2019, whenever you met an Iron Hands player, you were just like, you are the fucking coolest guy.
Man.
Like,
You're a
So
little
like-
weird, but you're cool. Yeah.
Dude, like,
Raven
perfect
got
example.
down.
Say Hi Paul has had an Iron Hands army for
yeah,
years.
exactly. And so High Paul is the coolest guy.
Yeah, that's very true.
So why Imperial Fists?
So it's an interesting thing, and this sort of actually still goes into the origin story. Warhammer for me was one of those things that went from like, oh, I'm doing this because I'm trying to help my chronic illness, to this is now wildly out of control very quickly. Because obviously you get into the bat reps and you start watching YouTube, and I started watching a lot of a channel called Morehammer, and this was run by a guy called Liam Dempsey.
Do you know him by any chance?
Well, it's funny you should mention that.
Name drop.
Yeah, but no, basically what
Hashtag
happened
name
was Liam.
Name drop.
So Liam and
Name drop.
Winters, they came together and they created something called DZTV.
Name drop.
And so DZTV has
Name
a
drop.
Patreon. I hate you.
We'll stop that one.
Sandman and Rezza and BDR, they're just waiting by their mics, like watching Alex. For the hashtag
He
name.
hasn't even mentioned to message him on Instagram yet.
Oh, we'll get to that. But yeah, so basically, DZTV has a Patreon and an associated Discord server. And Liam just wouldn't shut up about it. And so at one point, I was just like, you know what? I was like, okay, I've got to check out this Discord server. And it's totally bonkers. It's just full of cool people doing cool hobby stuff. And
Me.
yeah, and this is how I met Rezza. And so basically, like, I've totally forgotten the point of the question.
Why Imperial?
Why
Fist?
Why
Imperial
Imperial
Fist?
Fist? Okay,
Now you're
so-
talking about DCTV.
Yes, DZTV. So basically,
This is how all conversations with Quipster go, guys.
oh yeah, I just off on this wild tangent.
So
but-
what do you do? So DZTV.
So basically, I started getting chatting to Liam because we were talking about like photography stuff, camera stuff, because he's a massive like tech nerd, and I had just started doing a couple of like little YouTube things. Just I wanted to start making videos about like things I wish I'd known, you know, growing up, kind of thing, or things I wish I'd known after uni. And I had I had this podcast. Shut up, Rezza. I had this podcast and I started doing things, and we started chatting about that. And then eventually he was like, "Dude, why don't you just come and hang out and we'll do a bat rep together?" I was like, "Oh, that sounds great." So I went down to his, took my army, and we filmed this bat rep together. And on the way back to London, he just sent me a WhatsApp and he was like, "Yo, dude, I'm trying to expand the team. I want to beef up Warhammer a little bit. So do you want to come on board as part of the Warhammer team?" I was like, "Fuck yeah, that sounds awesome." And I was just like, wow, this is great. And then I suddenly realized after a little bit like, oh shit, I've only got one army. And this was just as the Space Marine supplements was beginning to drop. So Ultramarines first, and was it White Scars?
No, Raven.
Yeah, it was White Scars. Yeah.
White Scars and Ultramarines came
Completely
first.
wrong. Raven God was next.
Yeah, Raven Guard and Iron Hands were next. And, as this was happening, like, basically all the Warhammer guys, we all picked a Space Marine successor, or a Space Marine first founding chapter, and we were just like, right, that's going to be my Space Marine army, just so we had options for the channel. And I was just like, oh, shit. I just tested out contrast paints, and I'd painted the back of an intercessor leg ironed in yellow, and I was like, this is amazing. This is genuinely amazing. I was like, fuck it. I'm going to start Imperial Fists. Because this was Sandman. You, me, Adam, the legal department, and a few others had gone to Warhammer World. And while we were there, I was just like, well, I'm at Warhammer World. Of course I'm going to buy some Space Marine intercessors. Just because, of course.
They sell those at most Games Workshops.
I thought you were going to say like massive affordable purchase.
No. But bear in mind, like, these intercessors are from Warhammer World.
Okay,
So
that's
that's-
special.
Are they any different?
In my head, they are.
He got nameplates for them. That say.
But yeah.
From Warhammer. Oh, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up with the intercessors painted as Imperial Fists, and yeah, it's just sort of gone on from there. And
So interesting.
Yeah,
So
that's
I've
how
got to ask because it just interests me. So how does Dawn rank in your Primarch ratings?
Good
so
question.
this is a funny one for me. Like, obviously the expectation, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, Dawn's the best." I don't think he is.
Sanguinius is the best.
He's
one.
gone so much in my estimation.
yeah,
So,
same.
after Saturday, unbelievable.
Yeah, like,
the
well,
Siege
Praetorian of
books.
Dawn as well. Like Praetorian
Yeah,
of Dawn, most of
Praetorian
Praetorian of
Dawn as
Dawn, I was like, could take a leave. He's mean to Garrow. I love Garrow. And then, like,
So I can never forgive him for that.
yeah, but then something happens with Alfarius, and you're just, and then it's an epic moment of it's a properly epic moment of the heresy when he when he picks out Alfarius, you're just like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Like, and so sorry, carry on. I was interested.
So no, I mean all of those things are
Yeah.
correct. But to be honest, Dawn never actually stood out to me very much as like one of my favorites. My favorite Primarch actually is Loyalist Fulgrim.
Oh, interesting.
Genuinely, because like it really bothers me as well. Like,
So which book do you think of when you think of Loyalist Fulgrim?
So yeah, when I think of Loyalist Fulgrim, I think of the Palatine Phoenix,
Palatine Phoenix.
which is his Primarch novel, which is genuinely one of my top 5 favorite books ever. Not like favorite Warhammer book, but favorite book.
Who is it? Is it Graham McNeil?
No. It's I think it's Josh Reynolds.
Okay.
And he is just a phenomenal author. I love him. I think they've just sort of like given him The Emperor's Children, because I think he did a bunch of the Fabius Bile novels as well. But he's just
they're great.
Yeah, it's so good. But he is just like a fantastically funny author as well. But his portrayal of Fulgrim in that, Christ, I remember I was actually in bed with a girl, and she'd come over for the first time, and I was literally like, I had to whip out my Kindle and start reading a little bit because I was like so engrossed with this book. And she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm just like, I've just got to trust me. I've just got to finish the chapter. And she's like, "Really?
Take it you're not seeing her anymore.
I am not."
I think even Graham
She's
she's
actually
really?
she's actually engaged to someone else now, so she did pretty well out of it.
Name dropped.
But yeah, no. So Fulgrim is definitely my absolute top favorite.
Has Dawn grown in your estimation since you started collecting the fists, or
no? Well, actually, okay, no. He has, but only because of Saturnine.
Yeah,
like his portrayal of Saturnine.
So coincidentally, he has.
Coincidentally, yes, but not because I play fists.
Sure.
And I think the Imperial Fists, a lot of their lore actually has some very serious deficiencies. I think as a first founding chapter, I think they're very underwritten in a lot of ways.
Is that
especially
deliberate?
40k?
Because as everybody jokes about in the 40k, and is true, so many of the successor chapters come from Ultramarines and Imperial Fists. Do you think they left Imperial Fist deliberately kind of bland so they could just draw so many from them?
No, I think they just fell through the cracks.
And I think part of it as well is some authors. I mean, for example, if you take Black Legion before Aaron Dempsey Bowden got to them, they were in no books. I mean, they were in the Pharos follow-up. Sorry, the Pythos, the Damnation of Pythos.
What a shit book.
Yep, they were in that. They were in Gordon Rennie's Battlefleet Gothic series. It's 2 books: Execution Hour and Shadow Point.
I feel like they just don't really even come up. They haven't come on a style they want to write for them. Because we were talking about, what was that book with the Primaris Librarian?
Oh my fucking god, Fist of the Imperium.
Yeah.
What a shit book.
I've not heard of that one.
Don't read it.
Black
it's
Library, you do a good job. Sorry.
Okay, Black Library doing a phenomenal job for a lot of things, but Fist of the Imperium was the fucking worst piece of literature I've ever read in my entire life. I cannot describe to you. I'll say. Wait, hang on, Rezza. Can you pull up the?
That's going to be the title for this podcast.
Genuinely, so
there's a review.
There's a review
is the worst piece of shit.
On Goodreads. There's a review for this book, and it sums up literally everything I have to say about this.
Is that
fucking
you wrote?
I love how he's saved on his phone. Okay,
it's genuinely awful in every conceivable literary way.
So is there anything about the Fists then that you kind of think that is interesting and you wish they expanded upon?
Yes, there's a lot about the Fist I wish they expanded on, and a really good example of that is what's that book? It's got the Raven Guard, the White Scar, and the Imperial Fist Lieutenant.
Oh, it's one of the Conquest books.
Yeah, it's one of the Conquest books.
So I've not read Sons of Dawn, and again, apologies if any Black Library authors listen to this podcast. Bland, one-dimensional, and frankly unlikable Space Marine characters once again typify Clark's Imperial Fist to the degree that it makes Sons of Dawn by Chris Robertson look like the heights of literature. So, is that a par? Is that a cuss? I'm not really sure.
It's a cuss.
Alex, did you feel good after you sent that?
Oh my god, awful. But
I can't remember the title of it, but it's in one of the Conquest books, so it has multiple books in that novel. Yeah, it does, because later on there's a one. Well, in that book I read, it had later on a Space Wolf story.
Oh, we must have read different ones, because I just read that novelization. And
no, my one had a few stories, but the story in it is quite cool, and it really depicts what an Imperial Fist should be about. Because he's a lieutenant, Primaris Lieutenant. He was in charge of a force that had a Raven Guard captain and a White Scars captain, and they wrote the White Scars and the Raven Guard really well in those books as well.
Absolutely. I mean, what they really delve into there with Imperial Fists is their mindset compared to the other first founding legions. So you've got, for example, the White Scar. Sorry, this is like massive spoilers for this book.
That we don't know the name of.
Yeah.
Well, actually, White Scars are their own kind of crazy thing. What's the difference between an Imperial Fist and an Ultramarine? That's the big one for me, because the problem is they seem too similar.
So you actually come up against a really interesting thing, in that I don't think I've ever really read an interaction between an Ultramarine and an Imperial Fist.
There's going to be one in the scouring.
yeah, there is. But like, that's
No,
the
I
thing.
don't like your book.
But this is the thing.
He basically gives that review. Bland,
literally.
book.
But this
Well,
is
like, what's the
thing,
difference between Dawn and Guilliman then?
Gilliman's better.
Yeah,
I mean,
apart from that.
but genuinely, like as an Imperial Fist player, I
Yeah.
actually prefer Guilliman, and one of the reasons I prefer Guilliman, and like
He's really
Josh
good character. He's
Warhipster
really
will back
well
me up on this. He's so well written over such a diverse.
Well, the books
pile
I've read
of
of him,
books.
he's just so human. Where Dawn kind
Exactly.
of comes across a bit like with the books.
They
I've
need
not
to
really
do-
many of Dawn, but
Yeah.
he comes a bit like a robot.
But
kind of-
that's why it's and that's why I think Dawn's probably grown your estimations since you read Saturnine, because it's when he starts fraying and when that kind of stoicism starts getting
Yeah.
worn away
Yeah,
that
yeah.
You do get some vulnerability in it. And
You
character
peel the
development
layers
from him.
Like
Absolutely.
I think the relationship between him and Sigismund kind of will
Siggy,
typify that.
Yeah.
Because that what will happen there, like where that will go, kind of will signify whether, because that's the way people love Guilliman, like you say, is because he actually grows as a character.
Yeah.
And Dawn, outside of just going
Yeah.
gradually insane as the siege goes on.
But this is the
doesn't really
thing:
change.
Imperial Fists haven't had enough written about them to have any of that development.
And I
That's
said,
the issue.
I think the same about the Lion. The problem with the Lion is that
Exactly.
the Lion goes through books, and you think would learn something, and then you start the next book, and he hasn't learned anything. It's like, why did I even read that? Like,
Well, talking about the Lion,
Yeah.
do you want to tell us about your hobby origins?
actually, let's do Karim. Let's do you first.
Sure. So I started pretty young. I started when I was 7 years old, and my buddy Al popped into school with Battle for Macragge, which is the 4th edition box set with the Marines from it, and he was like, "Look at these!" And we were the nerdy kids in our primary school class, so we liked Star Wars, and this is when Lord of the Rings was coming out in cinemas, I believe, or I can't remember. It's when the prequel trilogy.
So it's like 2001, 2002.
Yeah, so it was after Attack of the Clones, before Revenge of the Sith. And he was like, yeah, I've got these guys who are superhuman warriors, defenders of humanity, etc. Went into the fluff explanation. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then one of my other friends got some stuff, and one of my other friends. So I went into Games Workshop Croydon, big up. And I was like, so my friends told me Space Marines are like sick. Can you give me something that's like a Space Marine, but stronger so he can beat him, and cooler? And he's like, I have literally just the thing. And he got a box of Khorne Berserkers off the shelf. And my dad liked it because at
Name
the
drop.
time, name drop, shout out to Puppy. It was 12 for £18, I think.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I love those prices now.
what happens to this economy, man?
So he was like, yeah, it's great, it's great, it's economical compared to the rest of this nonsense. So I went home with the Khorne Berserkers, and I've collected a form of Chaos in every game I play since, apart from Blood Bowl, and I feel bad about playing Elves in Blood Bowl. But
Why do you play Elves in Blood Bowl?
because
You're a
I'm
meta
a
chaser?
gamey bastard. I play Pro Elves, Elven Union, so not Delves or Wood Elves, so it could be worse. Dark Elves or Wood Elves. But for that next Blood Bowl season, I'll probably play Chaos Pact. But yeah, so, and then I got a Baden for my 8th birthday. So I painted up the Khorne Berserkers World Eaters, because that's what's on the box, right? When you're a kid, that's what you do. But I got a Baden for my 8th birthday from Al again, shout out. Name drop. And a Baden at the time could only be played in 2,000 point games and over. And I had a squad of Berserkers, 1 bike, and 5 Chaos Marines. But I played them anyway. And then I had to repaint everything Black Legion. And I painted over my existing
Very
job.
thematic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I left the helmets red because,
Yeah.
Hounds of Abaddon. But yeah, they changed their loyalties. And I probably played up until my early teenage years.
Do you still have those Berserkers?
I do.
Awesome.
I can, I don't know if we can post pictures in the show notes. They look fucking dreadful. But
So
yeah.
I think what happened is you heard they were going to get 2 wounds 20 years later,
Yeah.
and you power gamer, mate. That's your problem.
Guilty. Cuff me. Same cell tonight, please, officer. But no, so yeah, it was much like Alex. It was like living in London. It was something safe that we could go and do. I had a brother who's 18 months older than me, and he thought it was super nerdy. But my mum would be like to him, "No, Karim can only go to Games Workshop via public transport if you go with him." Because he was like 10, so he was slightly more responsible. So we used to go down to the Games Workshop youth sessions, play till I was in my early teens, and then
It's a long game.
Yeah. Well, I yeah, it was a single game, and it transcended editions. I think I stopped during 5th, a little bit after 5th came out. Then I, discovered being a legend, and just going out,
Rugby and
girls,
girls.
playing a lot of rugby, and then and part of it, it was, I didn't get bullied out of it.
Yeah, we haven't spoken about rugby at all, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've played rugby my whole life, and it's kind of but we can talk about off air.
Yeah.
I think the question that I love asking people like you is like, so I want two rules from you. So one from all the editions that you've played that you thought was fucking nuts and like it's just crazy that existed in the game. And then the second one is there any rule from the previous editions you would love to bring in to 9th edition in some form? Yeah. So a rule that's nuts. Can it be the same rule for both? Yeah, do it. Yeah.
So I've spoken that before, which is
you're a masochist. Yeah.
Abaddon's old Trachnian rule.
Oh no, what's this?
So it used to be a single attack, and if it hit and wounded, I don't think your opponent can make saves, and it just instantly killed them.
We're dead.
Against the vehicle, it would score a single penetrating hit, and back in old editions, that could just one-shot a Land Raider. You just roll up a single penetrating hit. So on a 5, it's destroyed. On a 6, it explodes. I think 4's immobilized.
That's
3
epic.
weapon destroyed, 2 crew stunned, 1 crew shaken.
That's so funny.
God, I remember that after about 10 years. But
Jeez.
That sounds so different to now.
When you got that Abaddon model, I meant you were 8 years old.
Yeah.
But like, did you think, wow, this is an incredible? Because obviously he got a hell of a glow up, didn't he?
A hell of a glow up.
But like, did you think this was an incredible model, or did you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was it was super old stuff back then. So again, it's all comparative. I mean, this is before the plastic term, or it was just when plastic Terminators were coming around. So yeah, these kits were super ugly, and he looked comparatively cool. And again, because you're a kid, your imagination is there, and his arms didn't stay on the model at all. There's so much green stuff and plastic.
And this is before we knew what
glue.
pinning was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Still don't know what pinning is.
And so I stopped playing, and then got to university. Still a legend. Still playing a lot of rugby, and then I signed on to do my masters, and I was at the University of Nottingham doing my masters in
I can see where this is
philosophy.
going.
Name drop.
Yeah, name drop. And I got a fairly gnarly shoulder injury, which had me out for a bit, and I needed a little bit of surgery to sort it, so I couldn't really play. And then I was kind of like, well, I live a 5-minute walk away from Warhammer World. And I tried to play at uni once before. I brought some stuff up, and then I didn't get bullied out of it, but my mate was like, that's literally the least cool thing you can do right now. And I was like, yeah, fair. Ironically, those friends are now starting to play for the first. They've been messaging me past couple of weeks, the rugby boys that I used to live with, asking what armies I had recommendations for, and
That's
sending me loads of
hilarious.
questions.
What position did you play, just out of interest?
So prop and number 8 for most of my
I
life.
can see why you have no shoulders.
Yeah.
Rich, were you a back?
Yeah,
He was a prop too.
I'm a wing or full. Yeah, wing or fullback. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm the quick guy on the edge of the pitch, and Karim does all the hard work and gives me the ball, and I go score.
Yeah, mate, I love a scrum.
I've my younger brother plays rugby, and he's a much better player than me. He's gonna love that if he listens this far. But he's a prop, and he'd be in the scrum. And I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just there like waiting for the ball, looking at the side of the pitch. Maybe make that. Actually, to be fair, I'm quite a good tackler. But saying that, with my earlier conversation, Warhammer's really filled that gap for me. Like not being able to play rugby anymore, having Warhammer, that's like massive.
Dude, I had exactly the same because of chronic illness and stuff, I had to give up fencing, rock climbing, and the gym. And so like there was literally this massive hole in my life that I just needed to fill in some way. And yeah, Warhammer absolutely did that.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it is so I started to get back into it, and the social element is so great because Warhammer World was my local, literally a 5-minute walk away, and there's a group there, awesome group of folks called the Bugman Bandits, and because Bugman's Bar is the name of the pub restaurant they've got there. So I played with Bugman's Bandits for the last bit of 8th edition, then came back to London, and the fun and fluff. So what would be almost 2 years ago now, 2 days after I came back to London, was my first experience with the guild. And yeah, that was sort of my journey fully back into it. And why Black Legion? Because I got banned for my 8th birthday.
Have you ever, Dark Angels jokes notwithstanding, have you ever been tempted by any non-chaos faction?
Yeah, I sometimes, I'll again it's because I'm a massive. So I clearly demarcate my fluffy stuff and my competitive stuff, and I love the fluff. And I'm up to date with Heresy. I've read far too much Black Library, and
I wonder
sometimes
if you're beating me.
I'm not sure. I've been pretty slow recently. I've been trying to get through the Priest of Mars books by Graham McNeil.
Ooh, I'm not there.
I'm halfway through the first one, and I've also been keeping up with the serialization of Fire and Fury, the James Swallow sisters book, which is in White Wolf currently.
Oh yeah,
they're releasing a chapter a month.
So I think Karim wins.
Possibly. So like the reason I say this is because I've have you heard of Goodreads?
Yeah.
So on my Goodreads I keep a separate thing with all the Warhammer books I've read, and including omnibuses, I'm up to 125 books.
That's
the Black
a
Library
lot.
books, and because of the omnibuses, if you like separate those out, it's probably got 160.
Yeah, so I think that's probably more than me. I mean, to be fair, I did it recently. I actually thought
Name
about doing
drop.
that recently because
All short stories though, guys.
all novellas.
You actually can't read.
And some of it's actually fanfics which she wrote. But,
It's all just pictures.
no, but yeah, I made a list actually of all the video games I've ever played and what I completed in my memory,
Oh, wow.
just to see what my gaps were, because I was curious. So yeah, maybe I'll do the same for 40k books. I'd probably miss some, just racking the brains, but it'd be fun.
You should do it.
But yeah, I to echo the sentiments earlier, one of the great things about Warhammer is that it plugs the sort of the social gap that you get from a sports team, whatever. And I think it's funny that a lot of people I've met at the guild or who help run things do have that sort of background, because it is very much run as a community first and foremost, a community joint over a shared interest.
That's a
to
weird
fund
thing to say.
Lamborghinis.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Matte Black Lambos.
But like rugby is a very social sport.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's weird to have a comparison, but then there's
You
also
can't not talk in a scrum. Like,
there's
Chat shit to the other prop.
plenty you can do in a scrum. But
Warhammer
then
doesn't
it
plug
also
like that does.
it pulls at the competitive strings as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's something which you can either have a really chilled out game, like Matt Hunter, one of my old friends, used to egg him on because I'm pretty bad, but to neck a pint before every one of his games at Warhammer World during tournaments, at the start of the game and after his game.
I would like to say that Matt Hunter is still alive.
I mean, he's
Even
clinging
though
on.
Just talking about
Life
it past
expectancy
tense.
not too great though.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that kid loves a pint, but well, he's back in Oz now.
Which sucks.
Yeah. But yeah, it's there's so many bits of it, because talking about the health aspect of it, it's nice to have something that's so tactile, because when you play computer games or whatever online, there is a sort of barrier from your friends, and there's a barrier from your achievements as well. I mean, even hitting masters on League or hitting getting a really high rank in a game, it is awesome. Whereas with Warhammer, because you can actually touch it and you can see it and it's something physical, that element of tangibility, I think, and the immediacy of the fruits of your labor really adds a really interesting aspect to it.
Especially with those games your rank resets.
Every season.
Well, to be fair, this is exactly the same that I have with my relationship with computer games, because I have always been a massive computer gamer. Consoles, admittedly, but still.
Yeah, we're nerds of every shade here.
Yeah,
we love all
exactly.
nerdy stuff.
I don't really count myself like you guys.
You've got a girlfriend.
Oh my god, yes. But yeah, so this is the thing.
I don't even play Warhammer. I just
It's all for
Laughing
show.
you guys. Yeah.
But yeah, so my relationship with computer games radically changed over time, because as I sort of grew up and had less and less time, I was beginning to think to myself what's the point for me in playing Call of Duty online for 3 hours? What have I got at the end of it, except for it's now 6 o'clock as opposed to 3 o'clock?
Yeah, not as good as me.
Well, yeah. And then whereas if I'm painting Warhammer, for example, 3 hours later, look, this is what I made, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, I spoke about this Edge a little bit on the break. It's a weird metric to measure success by, but it does feel good finishing an army or finishing a unit. And if you've got one of those really tough days where nothing seems to be going right, you're like, well, at least this week I got some base coats down, or it's small achievements. Though having said that, I don't think we should also invalidate stuff like computer games because it's not tangible. It might sound like I was doing that earlier, but there is obviously definite value to having an experience and going through whether that's gaming or whatever.
So actually a really good point to this is like what we were doing over lockdown with Call of Duty. Like we played like Battlefield Bermondsey. We played Call of Duty together every single day in lockdown. And that was one of the ways we maintained being social. Yeah. And that's how these guys actually met Winters.
Name drop.
And then I got my amazing nickname.
We did. I mean, House Party did a lot for us. I'm pretty certain they've sold our data to Chinese scammers, but like it absolutely it did do so much for like. So you're right. Like I spoke to you guys more than I've ever spoken to anyone ever. Like it was. It was so much. Like the person I talk to the most is a guy called AJ. Shout out to AJ. Congratulations on the baby, by the way, as well.
Name drop.
And we talk every day. We talk so much every day, and it's like you just like I just like my friends who don't play Warhammer, like they're so shocked that like I talk and spend so much time with you guys. Like
the Gears of War team I mentioned earlier. Yeah. So we were competitive back when I was year 10 at school. So how old are you then? 15, 14?
Yeah.
I'm still friends with them now, and we talk and play games together now, and I'm 27.
It is so it's funny actually. You mentioned about like how you have that idea of completing something in the day, and you guys mentioned with the chronic illness. Yeah. Sorry, different.
Well, mental illness is part of it.
To be fair, I've met you. I wouldn't put mental illness. But like you are right, because like the Hobbit as a community, as Warhammer community, and I'm actually not a massive gamer, but as compared to the other communities I've been in my life, I would say, and admittedly it's a bit to do with the times, but the Warhammer community is incredibly good at talking about mental health for a hobby. It's so good. Like I've had so many conversations with people about mental health, and like Winters is a huge part of that, admittedly. But I think that's it. It's because like we all have those days, and even if like I don't particularly suffer, but like we all have those days where you feel like fucking crap, and like if you've done one thing, you paid one guy, like it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think talking about our own like personal journeys, and we haven't done Ed yet, but quickly, I think we've definitely not got a duty, but you do want to make a community better than the way you've entered it, and I think that's something we've tried to do. So for those who don't know me, I help run the London Wargaming Guild, which is the club these guys have spoken about a bit. And I curate a couple of online communities, whatever. And I think, you can make such a difference by trying to make a positive community. And it is tough. Like the internet can be a really toxic place, and it feels like it's getting more toxic, the internet as a whole, as I've got older. Maybe I'm just paying too much attention to Facebook comments.
Sorry about this.
It's okay. It's under every photo. God, Ed.
Interesting at that point, because both the tournaments I've been to with the London Wargaming Guild, both of them have had big parts of it raising money for Mind Charity.
Yeah.
Which is
something which has been
amazing,
frustrating that we haven't been able to do. And I know a couple of people have reached out to me quite recently about doing some more work for them. So we were thinking of doing, Nova Open have their charity foundation.
Yeah.
Obviously that's stateside. So we were wondering if there's an opportunity to do something a bit smaller here, because historically we've been sponsored by people like Seed Studios, and obviously there's loads of great painters in the community like War Hipster and whatever. So maybe that's something we'll try and do over this potential next lockdown. Or
me and Peter have had odd conversations about stuff, because through where I work we do match funding, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, on the tournament thing, I have a question for you guys. The answer is probably no, but I'm just curious, because one of the things that GW kind of announced at the start of 9th was that they were going to take a bit of a much more interest in the competitive scene, and we've kind of seen a bit of that this week with the announcement of Nick Nanavati's face and Metahammer.
Well, yeah.
And so have they reached out to like you guys, for example, and been like, we want to be involved with the tournaments?
No, not yet. And so in terms of how it's been done, They basically, on their Warhammer community site, they have a calendar of upcoming events where they'll host an event regardless of size. They'll also support the event with prizes if I think it's over 105 attendees.
That's
so
awesome.
the super majors.
A lot of 106.
Well, so it's mostly the super majors. I mean, you'll have some of the smaller majors, but your LGT and LVO, Nova, what's the one in Chicago called? Adepticon.
Yeah.
They're mostly in, and obviously they hired Mike Brandt, who was previously the head honcho of 40k at Nova, and he was obviously highly involved in the IT independent tournament circuit. But in terms of actual engagement between Games Workshops and clubs, it's not really happened. I think there was a bit of a backlash because they previously helped out a little bit with the LGT, which is run by an old guild member, Zach. And then 2 years ago, there's the whole terrain issue they had, where the terrain wasn't amazing. It was chunks of polystyrene.
That was a whole drama.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rezza won't know any of this. Do you want to explain that?
So this is actually how I found out about the guild, because at LGT, which is the London Grand Tournament, it was they wanted standardized uniform terrain, so they ended up using some cut foam that were cut into to be line of sight blocking, L shapes, etc. But they were unpainted, so they essentially had lumps of foam on the table, which was very unsightly. And given the price people pay for their tickets, they expect better. And better was delivered in 2019. I mean, the tournament was I didn't have the opportunity to go, but I
imagine a lot of people didn't go back.
But the terrain was wonderful. And I actually found out about the guild because someone commented on saying, well, we have better terrain at the guild. And I replied, what's that? Yeah. But one of the great, I mean, we're across the platforms now, we've got like maybe 2,000-3,000 members, probably nearing 3. And a big part of it has actually been, a portion of that's been helped by the guys at Games Workshop, Tottenham Court Road, who have used to play down with us. And they've been great. For example, they gave Pete, our founder, some Marines to take to BBC Radio 2 when he went to talk about Warhammer on it last year. And they've, the amount of new players we get where I say, how'd you hear about us? And they go, the guys at Games Workshop recommended you.
That's awesome.
I heard about them.
There's an informal relationship there, and they're really wonderful. But in terms of actual community outreach, that's something I'd love to see more. Something which I'd hope to see more as well.
Do you think there's I just assume everybody in London plays with the LWG.
No, not at all. I mean, you've got, and if we're going to talk about making the community better, I can shout out some great other clubs.
Oh, really?
Hate, which again is an ironic name. It's for the Hackney area tabletop enthusiasts. I've not had the chance to play down, but you hear nothing but great things about them. There's quite a few actually members at the guild who play down there and vice versa. I think they're in Bethnal Green or Hackney area. I know the the independent characters guys play down there when they come.
Do they?
Yep. I think it's just the ones, but Adan and Carl have played with them, I believe.
Awesome.
So they're really great, and London's such a big place. There's so many gamers. Like lots of guys at Badminton have never played through the guild.
That's true.
Badminton does do quite a good job of its own little community, I guess.
Yeah, and it caters south of the river really well, and that's because we're the guild community. So we have nights which we host at our place in Covent Garden on Mondays and Tuesdays. We host Wednesday. We help host a night Wednesdays at Bad Moon. We do all our tournaments at Darksphere. We do stuff at Rule Zero, which is which is quite East London. They're more of a small format stuff. So we do Blood Bowl and More Time and stuff there. So we've got we're just trying to give people an excuse to roll dice in a positive environment, which is fun.
That's awesome. Great to hear. Well, let's wrap up with my story then of how I got into hobby. I don't have any tragedy really, I'm afraid. I actually have a pretty perfect body. That's not me. That's my mum's description. So that's pretty good. So nothing.
It's nice to look at.
But so my sleeper agent story is certainly one of Lord of the Rings.
I love the sleeper agent.
So the Battle for Middle Earth magazines, which is actually a surprisingly common starting point for a lot of people. I remember thinking when I first saw Conquest, why would they sell parts of the Space Marines and Death Guard kits so cheap. And then I met lots of people like quickly afterwards who all got into the hobby through Battle for Middle Earth. So it will pay off one day that they've kind of got a lot of people excited about it when they're adults. So that was how I got into it, and it was my birthday when we got the first magazine. So I got to play good, and my brother had to play bad in Lord of the Rings. Thanks, Will. Thanks for that. And then funnily enough, I actually got gifted someone's Space Marine army. It was a small army, but I was the dickhead who took it. And I'm still friends with that guy, actually. He now plays Death Corps of Creed. Shout out to Connor, name drop. And but yes, he gave me a small selection of Ultramarines, and I repainted them as Sides of the Emperor. Sides of the Emperor is one of the best schemes.
Great chapters.
One of the best schemes in 40k. And
hard to pull off, though.
Yeah, 8-year-old me did not do it any justice at all.
Well, actually, do you want to explain what the scheme is?
Well, the scheme is a yellow torso and then black legs and arms, and then the sides. There's 2 yellow sides on the arm.
All notoriously easy colours to paint.
Yeah, and yes, it's very very tough to do. And yeah, like I said, I absolutely butchered it. And it's funny because then I came back into the hobby, and they were in the codex when I just picked one of the chapters from the codex. I just thought it was a really nice scheme, and I came back to the hobby, and they're like a pretty big deal now. They're not founding legion, but they are founding chapter, but they are certainly
the successors of the Ultramarines.
Yeah, pretty big deal. And obviously
they've got a big chunk of lore.
They have 2 books. They're in the Belisarius Cool book. Like they're mentioned in Gathering Storm. Like
you occasionally have like chapters you don't see very frequently, but I always love seeing them on the tabletop.
Oh yeah,
Sides are up there. Howling Griffins as well. I know. But
actually, talking about Howling Griffins, have you seen from DZTV Morty and John?
Name drop.
Yeah.
So what's DCTV?
So Morty and John, I will whip up my phone and show you. Like he's just started essentially a Howling Griffins army, and
what regiment does he like?
It's actually ironic, the name. Yeah, he hates Mordians.
Oh yeah. Hang on. Deployment zone. So yeah, like for those of you who don't know, the Howling Griffins is a quartered scheme. So it's like upper left corner and lower
like
corner,
diagonal.
Diagonal, like red, yellow.
What founding chapter?
So I think they're Ultramarine successor. So boom.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful.
Why does everybody hate Ultramarine?
So good. Just like, yeah.
Wait, so were your sides? Did you make the decision to paint them as sides, or was they already some of them?
No, so they were actually painted as Ultramarines.
Nice.
And then I
did you strip or paint over?
Yep. I did not look that far ahead. So I just painted over the blue with the black and yellow.
I like how that's a shared theme of the origin stories. Repainting armies without stripping, just slapping the paint on.
And it was funny because I actually still have those models, and like a year or so ago, I actually stripped them to run them as it was my Dark Angels, because I was like, I'm probably gonna need some non-primaris.
Did you find the blue paint underneath?
I literally stripped the black and yellow, and then got to the blue, and then stripped the blue, and now they're green, which is the best color. As we know.
He's working his way through the colors.
Yeah, yeah. And so carrying on the story. So yeah, that was my, and I did Sides of the Emperor, and then the first. And I kind of like Space Marines, but when I went to the shop, to the Games Workshop, like just before my next birthday to get some more, I just saw the Tau, and I was just so excited by them. They just were so cool to me, and it wasn't a Gundam thing. I don't really have much anime influence in my childhood, but I just thought they were so cool. For me, it's that kind of Iron Man feel. It's just this idea of like these guys cannot fight toe to toe with the Space Marines, but you put them in a crisis suit, and then let's fucking go.
The Space Marine loses,
yeah. And it's just like cinematically in your head, crisis suits are so cool. Like as a kid,
but they come across really well in the books as well. The way they fight in the suits,
exactly.
It's proper Iron Man Gundam wing. The way they fly in,
yeah.
pow pow pow, and then just fuck off somewhere.
Yeah,
I'll tell you,
that's how it should be.
One of the books that Tau come off really well in is, surprisingly, you guys read any of the Caiaphas Cain books?
One of my missions never read a Caiaphas Cain.
They get very samey and shit after a while, but like some of them are incredible, especially the early ones. And the Tau come out very well from that, because like the description of Tau technology from the perspective of like a guardsman. Super interesting because like it talks about them looking at Tau technology or Tau battle suits and going, they move wrong because they're too fluid, because they're just
actually
better engineered.
It's funny you say that. So like one of the big kind of implication, one of the big technologies that the Tau use against the Space Marines in the Damocles Crusade is they have robotic Space Marines, and then that's how they tell that they're not. Well, they're in like a Tau formation instead of a Space Marine formation. So I think it's not Case of Precarious, the captain of the whatever is the 8th company now, and he was like, they look like they're moving too well, and so then
Nice.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
I need to read that.
Yeah, it's funny you said that the Tau books are, because I generally listen to the Horus Heresy and then I read the Tau books because Tau aren't important enough to actually get audiobooks. So like, and it's so funny to me because like they are so different. Obviously, because you know the Horus Heresy is so dark and grimdark, and it's not that there isn't grim darkness in the Tau Empire, when you read the Tau books, because a lot of the reading the Tau, it's like, how the fuck are these guys going to survive? Like they're so outmatched, but there's so much naivety there, and like the way they approach each challenge, Tau are actually really interesting to read a lot of stuff. So Farsight is a really great character.
That's the one book I've read where he first painted his suit red.
Right.
It's so cool the way he kind of went about it, and he was fighting orcs or something, and then like his mentor.
So in that book, for example, the way he fights orcs, and he comes up with the Book of the Beast, and he actually he does things that like the Imperium just doesn't understand. He actually works to like understand how the War works, and he uses that against orcs, and he like manipulates them to attack him when they shouldn't. And
he had an epic fight with the war boss that his suit broke, so he then jumped into a broadside suit and like hit the guy with the gun. It was kind of cool.
and again, it's like that Iron Man thing. It's like, so like, you know when Iron Man is fighting Thanos, and Thanos is out of his range, but Iron Man is so smart that he can like adapt.
He can adapt
and do. Like Farsight is like that. So Farsight, one of the massive spoilers, one of like the coolest things he does is he pilots like an alpha test of the Cold Star suit, and he literally flies from the Tau supership to the scars of the battles, the scars, some Space Marine chapter, and he goes into their ship, and he figures out how to destroy the warp drive. Obviously, he has no idea what the fuck he's doing. He just can understand things quickly, and eventually, like obviously, when he breaks the Gallifeld, all these demons turn up, and he's like,
starts kicking off.
Yeah, and he's like, wow, these Guayron shark eat really weird pets. Like this is very crazy. And so it's like they're so fun they're so like when Tau get a bad rep because they've had fucking horrific rules, and they're just bad rules, but like they are actually really interesting to read, and they're such a they do fit a position that no one else in the in the setting really kind of takes. Like if you like Perturabo when he takes down Angron, like if you like that kind of thing, you'll love Tau,
which is a great scene. Yeah.
You will love Tau. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
They represent awesome logic. Wait, I've just had a brain fart. Who are the three pupils of our Anvar? So you've got Farsight.
No, not Anvar. It's
Puretide.
Puretide. Sorry, you've got Anvar, Shadow Sun,
and Case. Okay.
Case is the protagonist from the Fire Warrior game, right?
Yes, he was. I mean, like it wasn't like deliberately done for that,
raptors.
but it was like but it was like they made that, and then I think because people liked that so much, and because people liked Dawn of War, they put him as one of the characters. He has been deliberately underwritten, like he's like as in like they've just left lots of stuff mysterious. He is a gem they sit on that one day GW might release.
Saying this though, you've not read that one book that has your two biggest factions are Dark Angels and Tau, and he's not read the single book that has Dark Angels and Tau in it.
It is actually on Audible, and the Lion book is out this weekend, so I will listen to that. But then after that, that will be my next one. But I mean his thing as well is so interesting because his is it's called Monat, and it's like the way of the lone warrior kind of thing, and so it's like. It would be so cool to have an army themed around that, but I don't know how they would do it.
Yeah, unless you did the
whole Custodes thing.
Yeah, I was about to say,
just 100 different fire warriors,
all just massive suits. A couple of courses.
But so that's really cool. So then, so I then took my break, as we all did once we discovered girls and partying and cocaine and stuff. And then when I came back into Warhammer in Hong Kong, as we discussed on 40k today. And I took back. I actually saw the friend who gave me the Ultramarines, and he was talking about Death Corps, and he really liked them. And like, yeah, that sleeper agent thing, something just went off in my head, and I was like, I have to read more of this. And then I read Gathering Storm, and I was like, God, this Gilliman guy seems important. And then then I started reading Horus Heresy, and I was like, they fucking brought back Gilliman. That's incredible. And so I had my mum sent me out my kind of like start collecting of what Tau that I had, and I bought a bunch of Tau stuff. And then when I moved back to the UK, I was like, right, I'm starting a new army, and I started Ravenwing because the line was my favourite. And and then I bought a lot of Dark Angels, and I stripped my old size and painted them up. And
did you game out in Hong Kong out of interest?
There weren't really tournaments, so there was like a mini tournament against Shenzhen that used to happen, like kind of semi-frequently, and there were like a couple of small tournaments that like 30 people, kind of, actually maybe even less. I can't remember now. Yeah, they were pretty small, but it was a really friendly scene. It, like you guys talking about with London being competitive earlier, like it wasn't a competitive place really at all. People generally just played really chill. And it was coming like London is, you do notice it like the level, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because I actually prefer competitive play generally, but it is something you got to be prepared for.
Well, it's a weird one because there's a whole build it and they'll come sort of idea, but since we started, because I think there was such there was obviously a clear market for competitive scenes, which is why all these awesome tournaments can run in such a packed schedule, but it's the non-competitive stuff, which I'm always just surprised by success. Like we've had across Blood and Dust, and then our other Slogo sign up. We had almost like 200 sign-ups at one point across the two of them. And people do love narrative as well, but I think it's just people tend to play narrative in their like sort of more narrative cliques, whereas competitive requires you to sort of move around between tournaments and different groups to keep the meta fresh and whatever.
Yeah,
at least here. But yeah,
I mean, the thing I would say between more narrative play and more competitive play is it's much easier to have a more plug and play experience with competitive stuff than it is with narrative, because
so
narrative,
it's harder to align expectations.
Yeah, and also with narrative it requires more of a conversation like beforehand. So yeah, that was one thing. But like interesting, like I remember the story you told me of like one of your first games back, like
so when I first played at LWG, this is true. So when I played in Hong Kong, I only ever met one other person that played Dark Angels. And I'd seen like Dark Angels Chris, name drop, and I'd seen like Tabletop Tactics, name drop. They're like Ravenwing Force, and I was like, this is the coolest army, and no one plays this army. I've never seen it. It's a really rare army that no one plays.
You felt like a snowflake. It was
great. I did. And Tau was a very popular army. Now in Hong Kong, it was very popular too. And I was like, God, I'm gonna have this really unique army, and everyone's gonna think I'm so cool. And then I bought all this Ravenwing, and I went to Seven Dials for the first time, and there were 3 games on, and 4 of the players, including me, were Dark Angels players. Like there was a Dark Angels on Dark Angels game, like such a ridiculously popular faction. And Tau, and I used to. The really nice thing about Tau, starting with, is they've quite a. I mean, like obviously Richard Seeger played them, so you could play them to an incredibly high level, but to play to like an okay level, they had quite a low skill threshold. There wasn't too much to them compared to a lot of factions. So I played them competitively, and then I kind of played Dark Angels kind of for friendlies through most of 8th, and then Marines went fucking nuts, and then Dark Angels went nuts 6 months later, and then 9th hit. And I was like, right, I'm sick. All right, I've tried. I've worked. It's because I'm
sick of winning.
Yeah, no. It's because like I'd worked so hard to be a snowflake, and I'd fucked it up. And I was like, right, no, this time I'm being a snowflake. So I was like, right, what is an army that no one fucking plays? And then everyone was like, well, Gene Stealer Cults are shit. And I was kind of like, I'm doing Gene Stealer Cults, and I fucking love Gene Stealer Cults. Everybody should play Gene Stealer Cults because they are. Like,
but then you won't be a snowflake.
Well, this is true.
Okay, don't play. I think
they say that, don't they?
I'll meet you halfway. I'll go Ash Militaro, which isn't halfway, but they share some units.
They say that, don't they? They say that orc players get like that. Like, being an orc player is like, like a crowning achievement.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle as well.
Yeah.
It's not a.
Well,
they have to talk a certain way, don't they?
Yeah.
Or you get.
They say orc players don't want orcs to be competitive because it would just make everybody play them. You don't want that.
That'd be a really hard one though, because it's like if you're a meta chaser, you've got to paint up how many orc boys.
Well, that's why people could. That's why Space Marine. We talked this before. That's why Space Marines being good is so horrific, and Custodes being good and Tau being good because they actually Custodes and Tau are actually two armies that you can kind of build the 2,000 point army reasonably cheaply,
and they're already prevalent.
Yeah. So so it's a problem. It's a problem when those armies are good. Yeah, like for Harlequins you mentioned earlier, Karim. Like the Harlequins are super good right now, but even if there were tournaments on, you probably wouldn't see that many because bitch to paint and quite expensive.
What's that thing you told me? I remember, like, when you first came back, so one of the ways you realised there was such a step up in, like, the level of competition from Hong Kong. You're playing this game against someone.
Oh yeah, I'm still salty about this to this day. So I only played in Hong Kong, and everybody was super friendly in Hong Kong, and you generally just like discuss the game or whatever. And I came back to Hong Kong, and before I moved to London, I lived in Cambridge for a bit, and there was a club there, and I played a bunch of games there, and most people were really nice.
What's the name?
I can't remember. Sorry,
I was going to hit them the name drop.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
But
Cambridge Warhammer Club.
I played this guy. And it was my first game in England, and I was like, "Hi, I just moved to the UK, like looking for a friendly game. I've got Tau, and I play Tau, but I remember saying like, I've got Tau, but I've got like a friendly list, and he was like, oh, okay, it's all right, I've got Admech, and I was like, okay, cool, it would be an interesting game, and so I turn up, and he goes and he takes out 3 knights. Now he takes out the Castellan. Now, interesting couple of things about the Castellan you should know at this point. A, the Castellan, whilst some knights are in the Admech Codex, the Castellan, not in the fucking Codex, is in the Knights Codex. And the Castellan, the best thing in the game at the time. And House Raven, also one of the best things in the game at the time. So he takes out 1,000 points of the Knight Codex to have alongside Admech. So I was like, okay, so you actually only got a small amount of Admech. He then takes out his Admech, and he's like, oh, do you mind if I don't play WYSIWYG? And I actually generally don't mind if people don't play WYSIWYG. It's not a thing I'm particularly fussy on. I do try to, but I don't mind if other people don't, if they're trying out different stuff. So I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And he was like, so these guns are not the guns they look like. They're the guns that are better against flyers. I was Tau, and I was like, okay, cool. And then everything was painted Mars, and he went, oh, and by the way, so I'm not playing as Mars. I'm going to play as Styges when I was against Tau.
Savage.
And he, I've seen some tablings in my time, but fuck me, he absolutely, like I said, I brought a friendly list. I had 3 ghost kills in that list. I had 3 devilfish.
One of the best models Game Boys have made, in my opinion.
Yeah, genuinely. And I had Commander Farsight and
School of Espid.
and honestly, and the funny thing was, it was how he behaved, because he wiped probably 1,100 points of my army turn 1, and then he went, you don't really look like you're enjoying this, mate. And I was like,
yeah, because you're a fucking
I was like, no, I'm not enjoying this. And and then turn 2, obviously, you finished the job. And I was like,
was he apologetic afterwards?
No, not at all.
There are those people.
Not at all. And I was like, okay.
Tell me who it is afterwards. I'll ban him. I'll just ban him. Yeah.
But and it was fucking savage. And I was like, playing in England is tough, man. It just messaging my friends. I picked the wrong hobby. I don't like this anymore. But yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I did kind of do a similar thing to Chewy the other day. But to be fair, in my defense, he was talking shit for a long time before that. He was trying to make this whole thing he's saying, oh well, firstborn Marines are clearly the best. I'm just like, would you care to put that to the test, son? Yeah, I tabled him twice.
Yeah, they had 1 wound at that point.
Yeah. This is pre Codex.
Not that they do much better against 1-up saves.
Actually, I've just remembered something. Karim, what was that story that you were going to say?
Well, it's probably safe at this point, given that I'm guessing Mum stopped listening because she's my biggest fan. No, so I took my Warhammer up to university to try and play before I got back into it during my master's year. And it stayed above my cupboard the entire year. But I showed it off to some of my housemates once. And I was on a night out and came back with a lass, as you do, lovely girl.
Excellent.
And when I came back, one of my housemates was like, "Oh yeah, don't go into your room, buddy. like to use my room, and I was like, and this housemate was the loveliest guy, so I just trusted him. So went up, used his room, legend.
Nice.
Came back to my room the next morning, and someone had taken out all of my Chaos Space Marines and put them on the floor facing the door with like their door, so you couldn't step on the floor. And when I was like, "What the fuck?" and he was like, "Oh yeah, dude, he's protecting your virginity. Your spacemen are protecting your virginity."
Almost
which, again,
extremely effectively.
It's such a good punchline. I was like, "Okay, fair play."
That is amazing.
But yeah, that's the story. But yeah, like I said, now all my friends I've realised that Warhammer's cool. So
Yeah, they want to be virgins too. Like they can join that club.
And in fact, actually, one of my friends has been, and this is so funny. He Boris has just messaged me saying I'm playing his White Scars next week. Joy.
That sounds fun.
He said something like, "Why do Space Marines have so much more than everyone else?" He's like, "I'm not sure if my Games Workshop website is broken or something, but all I can see is Space Marines." And I was like, "No, it's literally just like that." And he was like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking for the army that will be least fun for who I'm playing against. Like,
Nurgle.
I don't want to have fun. I just want to win." And I was like, "Well, yeah." So I said, Harlequins.
Because you wanted to fuck with him.
No. I said, if you want a high skill ceiling, because he's playing with some of the other lads I know, they're all getting into it new.
Nice.
I was like, well, if you want to fuck with Death Guard, Harlequins, Custodes, they're all good options. Or Eldar, because even though they're not in an incredible place right now, things like Jinx and Doom are so tilting to play against as a new player when you don't like realize what they can do. Like I just buy. See this unit Shining Spears? Buy a bunch of them. Buy some Wave Serpents.
It's because like those are such great foundations for an army. Like even if stuff's overpriced as Eldar, it's like, but they're doing twice as much as they should do because of Doom and Jinx. Like,
a little sprinkle of Executioner on the top. And you're done.
Yeah. All right, so I think we're going to wrap it up there then, folks. Thanks very much for listening. I've been the Sandman. We've had
Quipster.
We've had
Karim.
And we've had
Rezza.
Okay, Big Dick Rich. So, guys, where can let's just do quickly. Where can we find you guys at Instagram?
At Rezza Prime.
At Cream of the Black Legion. Great pun. Thank you, War Hipster. And at L War Guild.
And mine is at Quipster Nerd on Instagram.
And I'm the Sandman Hobby. So you can find Spud there. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.